If you want to talk about Division III basketball, you've logged on to the right place.
Welcome to the big show.
Whereas on the men's side, I think they overloaded two of the brackets, and as a result, I think we're not going to get a good Final Four in the sense of who everyone really would like to see there.
The system is a mess, guys, but I think that's neither here nor there. And
the next 3 hours, we'll cover it all.
We don't have the time to move pieces because conferences are playing their title games on Sunday afternoon at 4 o'clock, for God's sake.
I'll tell you what, I'll support them. You guys are going to get to the Sweet 16 and get annihilated by Stevens Point.
With regional reports.
We've talked a lot about the fact on the men's side that there's not a lot of dominant teams, and the flip side of that is that you have a lot of parity. It makes the conference races exciting.
And interviews with coaches.
Hey, it's great to be on Hoopsville. I tell you, it's that time of the year.
Yeah, it is.
Thanks for having me. Thank you very much for having me.
This D3 basketball is the greatest. The players, they play because they love it. They're fun. The teams are playing. You go to these other campuses. It's where it's at.
And we knew that the ODAC competition was going to be very tough. We knew that each coach had done their job with recruiting, and there were so many young teams that we just knew that each and every night when we played an ODAC contest that we had our work cut out for us.
We'll talk about who's on top.
And the CCRW is much like the Wisconsin League, the WIAC, in that, I mean, really, it's a cliche, but it's true. On any night, anyone can beat you.
Those surprises.
Every game counts, especially
Play
the
your
regional
season.
games. Yeah.
Don't lose to a bad team.
Well, and don't lose your conference tournament.
And who's making news in Division III.
We got an awful tough league, and we have some tough games this week, but we're still tied for first place in our league in the loss column.
And as you point out, they're not a reliable team in the NCAA tournament. They've proven it year in and year out that you can't count.
You can even join in and chat with us.
I mean, this lower right-hand bracket is loaded.
This bracket is ridiculous. I mean, you could take a Final... This could be a Final Four bracket.
You want to play that Thursday game because you have not won an NCAA tournament game. You got to go out there and show yourselves that you can actually do it.
So sit back and relax, and let's talk D3 hoops.
We talked before about Hope Calvin being far and away the #1 rivalry in Division III basketball. You can't dispute it.
I think the WIAC always deserves 2 teams in the poll for sure, and probably 3.
Well, one, I think they got the easiest run to a possible Final Four. They don't have a lot of challenges on the way.
There were 3 teams in that region that deserved first-round buys.
Exactly.
And only 2 could get them.
Now it's time for Hoopsville.
Great show. Keep this up. This is a good thing for D3, and I will enjoy listening to the rest of the show.
Let's get it started in here.
Everybody, let's get into it. Get stoked, get it started, get it started, get it started. Let's get it started.
Here's your host, Dave McHugh.
And welcome in, everybody. I am your host, Dave McHugh. Hope everybody is doing well on this Thursday eve to the sectional rounds of the NCAA Division III tournament. Got lots to cover along the way, and we hope you are enjoying we'll enjoy the show along with anybody else who might be tuning in. I know our Wheaton fan is in the chat room. Again, if you are watching us on our Ustream channel, there is a chat room alongside. And many of you get a chance to use that chat room to comment and share your thoughts. We appreciate it. You can also join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can also join us on Facebook at facebook.com /Hoopsville, I should say. We do use that, though, to post news and post archives or on-demand stuff, et cetera, et cetera. You can also join us on email, hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville at d3hoops.com. IM us at Hoopsville 2000. We do use the AOL IM, and now that I realize, I believe we are invisible, so we'll make sure we're available. Hoopsville 2000 on your AOL IM. Those are the 5 ways you can get in touch with us here on the show. Dave McHugh here alongside Chris Taher in the background. He will be on with his School of the Weekend. Chris, he's wearing his Chicago maroon shirt, everybody. I'm impressed, sir.
Thank you.
I'm wearing the defunct Pride of Maryland basketball tournament polo today. 32 teams remain for a chance at 2 national championships. We'll talk plenty about who is left and what may happen this weekend, as we did a little bit on Thursday. We'll also talk about one of the other interesting stories that has broken today. The leading scorer for one of the women's basketball Sweet 16 teams is not on the team because she decided to go on spring break instead. We'll talk about that. Pat Coleman will be joining me here shortly to talk about that. Justin Hallowell from Worcester will be joining us, the senior forward. We'll talk about the Scots' chances at getting to the Final Four. They are hosting. That is certainly a bonus. We'll talk about the CCIW-NCAC showdown essentially out there at Worcester, where Wittenberg is there as well, along with Illinois Wesleyan and for four mentioned, or I did not mention, I should say, North Central will be there. There are 3 teams in the CCIWN. Wheaton will be at Wisconsin Whitewater. That is where Pat Coleman is, and he'll join us shortly. Wheaton's taking on Whitewater, and Virginia Wesleyan's taking on Whitworth. I'm sorry, Pat is not there. He's actually at Chicago. I misspoke. He's on the women's side of things. He's there with the St. Thomas Tufts Calvin Chicago matchups. Also coming up, York College women's basketball. Betsy Whitman will be joining us. Talk about their great run and the win over Juniata. Only Juniata's third loss of the season, I believe. Beating them by 9, they get rewarded with Amherst. And I say that very seriously. Amherst has been on a run this year. Beating St. Joseph's of Brooklyn on the women's side 84-30, and then beating Babson 61-48. We'll talk to her about that. Our school of the week is Bowdoin. We'll stay up in the Northeast and for that. They are into the Sweet 16. We'll take on George Fox. That is their reward. They beat Ithaca by 4 after beating Southern Maine by 7. And they are traveling to Mary Washington, so we'll talk about that trip. A little bit of a flight, I believe, unless they decided to bus. And being someone who has to drive to Maine myself, I would hope they flew. And I'm thinking I'm forgetting somebody. I know there's somebody on the men's side. I am clear. Oh, MIT's Larry Anderson will join us. Their men's head coach there will be joining us here shortly. Or not shortly, but here in the show to talk about. By the way, an old regional reporter will join us as well. Old being from last year, and we haven't talked to him. Jody King, who actually is the head coach for Junior College Hosta up in New York. We will talk to him about his take on Staten Island, since he knows them well, and what he thinks might happen at Franklin and Marshall, at least with the Dolphins taking on the Engineers. We'll also get his take on things, a different coaching perspective on things, and maybe why Division III really is kind of something to cherish and treasure. I was trying to say the same two things twice. Question is, why would you make spring break plans like that when you have a chance at postseason games? I could maybe understand like someone at Bryn Mawr or something, but not anywhere good. We'll talk about that in a minute, NJF. I can understand making the plans. I don't understand why you don't get the insurance on those plans. That would be my thing. But we'll talk a little bit about that with Pat Coleman coming up here in just a matter of minutes. Again, you know how to get a hold of us. The chat room, that's where NJF is. And our Wheaton fan is in there as well. Again, you can email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can IM us at hoopsville2000 on your AOL IM. Join us in the chat room. Join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. We'll try and answer your questions on the air or at least via Twitter if we can. Trying to look through. There was actually a couple that have developed since I've been here, but nothing to jump through. But we'll check our emails quickly. That is always a good place to check, and so far nobody has emailed us. So we'll get Pat on here in just a minute. We'll break down the other story. He should be calling momentarily here. Let's remind you of the games that are taking place starting tomorrow night. At Middlebury, it'll be Cabrini, number 5 team in the country, taking on Eastern Connecticut. Both teams needed overtimes to get to where they are. Cabrini needing 1 and Eastern Connecticut needing 2. They will face off at Middlebury. Middlebury will be taking on Scranton in the second game there. That's at Middlebury. Word has it that place is sold out, but that doesn't mean maybe tickets don't become available for anybody who may be thinking about traveling up there or trying to think about getting to the games. Those games will be video broadcast as well. At Worcester, North Central will be taking on Wittenberg, and Worcester will be taking on Illinois Wesleyan. Illinois Wesleyan needed double overtime to take out the number 1 team in the country, Hope. That place should be pretty well packed, we would assume. I know plenty of Illinois Wesleyan fans, and I think North Central fans making that trip, and Wittenberg fans know how to get to Worcester. Those games will be video broadcast as well by Worcester. Upper right, Franklin and Marshall. It'll be MIT and Staten Island in the first game, followed by Amherst versus Franklin and Marshall. Remember, Amherst has only played one game in this tournament and annihilated NYU 80-56. I will be at... Jeez, my mic won't stay. I will be at those games, mainly on a production standpoint. We're going to try and use a few extra cameras and give you a good show out there at Franklin and Marshall. We'll have plenty of people on the call, though, as well. I may join the call on Saturday for sure. Then the lower right-hand corner on the men's side, it is Wisconsin Whitewater hosting Virginia Wesleyan and Whitworth, the two flying teams in this tournament. Will take each other on again. Remember, Virginia Wesleyan's also only played one game in this one and beat St. Mary's by 13. Wheaton and Whitewater, will be playing each other in the lower right-hand corner, and we'll get to the rest of the men's here in just a little bit. In the meantime, our good friend Pat Coleman has joined us on the Hoopsville hotline. And Pat, welcome into Hoopsville as you enjoy a little bit of light dinner, I assume.
Yes, it'll be momentarily, hopefully. Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Obviously, traveling out to Chicago as you're following the women is on your way to Holland this weekend. But let's talk about the story that's grabbed not only the attentions on the women's side, but it certainly grabbed attention on the men's side. I've seen the story posted in the CCIW boards. I've seen it in most of the Mid-Atlantic boards. I've seen it in some other places. And that is the story out of Kings where senior, just making sure I got it right, Paige Carlin, senior forward, sixth player, pretty much first player off the bench, leading scorer for the team, not with the team because she decided to go on spring break to Cancun.
Yeah, and there are so many facets of why this story is fascinating. Yeah. And one of the things, there's so much discussion about it on Twitter from, D3 fans and just fans aside from that. One of the interesting points that was raised today that I thought merited mentioning was, I think in a lot of cases, if this had happened, the coach might have just said she left the team for personal reasons.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Rather than commenting on the specifics. So, obviously this is one side of the story. None of us knows what her side of the story is, but I can't think of too many, reasons or ways in which, a normal person would find that reasonable. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, in freshman year, okay, maybe. This is your senior year. This team has never been to the NCAA tournament since 2003. It's only their fifth overall. The 03 ended a 4-year run, so she's never been to the NCAA tournament. She is a senior. She's our leading scorer. Granted, she hasn't gotten a lot of minutes in the last couple of games, but that's not the point. You figure in her situation, she may have planned a vacation, and I get that. I understand that decision. But you probably should have had the insurance in place just in case your team, which, by the way, wasn't doing badly this season. It's not like they have a bad record. It's not like they were a surprise in the tournament. But they go on and keep playing, and she decides, apparently from the article, and we did try to talk to Jill Snowden at I believe it is the Citizens Voice in Luzerne County. I tried to get her on the line. She was unable to join us. But from the article, it sounds like the team and her head coach did not realize she went on this trip.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't want to delve too much into speculation, obviously, because, we're responsible journalists. I know you and I both have, well, I had a day job at one point where I was a responsible journalist,
exactly.
And you still have one of those.
Yeah.
But, seriously, the concept that this would happen is just so surprising. You're right. Kings has been regionally ranked for as long as we've had regional rankings this season. They finished the regular season 21-5 in region. I think 21-6 or something like that overall. So the NCAA tournament should not have been a surprise at all. I don't know what else to say, to be honest with you. It's mind-boggling to me. I can't imagine too many people would really choose a spring break over playing in the NCAA tournament. That's just mind-boggling to me. I obviously, if you're a fan and you have plans, that's one thing. But
right,
I can understand also, and I can understand making plans
Yes, I can. Yes.
You know when your spring break is, and you
never know.
Exactly. But you got to be prepared to break those plans. I would think that when NCAA tournament time comes around and you guys are still dancing the second weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree entirely, and that's what I think is the most interesting part of this. You're right. I also find it interesting that this is public knowledge. That apparently somehow it got out to media that's what had happened. And the coach didn't exactly deny it. We, of course, just had their coach on. I believe it was Sunday night. And I don't think at the time he knew. I'm just going to go out on a limb. By the way, go ahead. I was just going to say, Wheaton Thunder fan in the chat room says he's willing to fly to Cancun to get an interview with her if we need.
Well, I suspect he wants she wants some reimbursement for that, so I'm not sure that's going to happen.
Yeah, no. His reimbursement is the fact he went to Cancun.
Yeah.
But it's strange. I mean, I know basketball, you know you're going to have things you got to deal with around Thanksgiving. You know you got things you got to deal with around Christmas. And you know spring break could become a factor. It's not like the NCAA tournament has ever moved, and spring breaks don't happen in March. So it's just kind of funny. And I don't remember, at least in my years of covering this, that at least a major player is not on the team for spring break, or goes on spring break and decides not to follow the team, especially a leading scorer, especially a senior.
Yeah, I mean, all of those things. You could kind of play Dave. You could kind of play the senior thing at the other angle too. This is our last spring break together.
Sure.
Blah 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 blah.
Sure.
I can see that, but for all of those reasons, there's the equal and opposite reason. It's also your last NCAA tournament. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And in this case, only NCAA tournament. I'm just surprised.
Yeah.
Kings obviously pulled off a bit of an upset to get to this point by beating William Patterson.
Certainly.
But is that? I don't know. Because one team of seniors is going to get to end their career on a win. Plus Paige Carlin, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say she's been taken off the NCAA roster. Most likely, if they were to make the Final Four, the chances of her being on that team and on that trip are probably slim. And
I'm
none.
sure. Yeah. Oh, all right. I mean, whether she could be added back to the roster or not is not really as much a cause of speculation. No. The question is, I'm sure she would not be welcomed back.
Exactly. A very interesting story out of Kings.
And it'll be interesting to see when she comes back. I'm sure, we'll find out what the rest of the story behind this is. Yeah. But it's just so fascinating and bizarre at the same time.
Bizarre is a great word of using. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, let's talk a little bit about the women's side of things. You are at Chicago as you're on your way to Holland, Michigan. You're getting ready.
And I would love to be able to do that all in the same trip, but I have to drive back to Minneapolis for the rest of the week in between.
Yeah, you can't skip across Lake Michigan or drive around it without having to make a return trip to Minnesota. It is a little bit roundabout, Pat, but that is how we do it in the NCAA. You got St. Thomas versus Tufts. The Tufts flew out there. And Calvin versus Chicago. Some really interesting matchups here. St. Thomas playing very good basketball. Tufts has had a good season that's been overshadowed by Amherst. Calvin has certainly dominated the headlines coming out of the Great Lakes. And Chicago maybe has been overshadowed by Amherst just a little bit, though I think they peaked through in the last few weeks as well.
Yeah, it is an interesting group, and that the first game, St. Thomas against Tufts, is going to be a real defensive battle. We know about kind of Tufts' prowess defensively because they have garnered some headlines, including on our site today.
Yeah.
About the kind of defense that they play, but St. Thomas prides itself on its defense as well. Coach Ruth Sin, who I talked to earlier this evening in preparation for a broadcast tomorrow, was talking about basically if you've seen the men's team play and you saw them on their run to the NCAA tournament championship last year, the women are kind of built around the same sort of thing. It's relentless pressure defense, taking care of the basketball, taking smart shots, making smart shots, and that is what they pride themselves on too. So it'll be interesting to see how that matches up and see if anybody breaks 55.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Those two teams certainly are content with keeping teams below 40 for that matter. Calvin and Chicago, that could be not a brawl in a bad way, but just a dogfight. These two teams really good on offense.
Yeah, the disappointing thing is that this game is being played on Friday rather than Saturday.
Yeah, true. Yeah,
it seems like those pods could have been swapped. But this was a great game last year in the NCAA tournament as well. I was talking to Aaron Roussel earlier this afternoon, the Chicago head coach, and he said he felt pretty happy to get out of Calvin's gym with a win last year.
Yeah.
At this point in the game, so it should be interesting to see how they match up. I mean, obviously, Calvin is the best player in this sectional, the best individual player in Christopher Kayak, but
yeah.
Chicago's obviously got a very balanced team, and they've been successful for quite some time now. So it's going to be an interesting matchup.
I know you've probably got dinner on the way, so any other things that are grabbing your attention on this Thursday night before the Sweet 16?
Well, I need a fork.
Good.
But that's probably not something you can help me with.
No, not from here.
I'm sure you're going to talk a lot about the men's bracket tonight, too. I'll be interested to hear, and I'll have to watch the archive or on demand later, just to get your take on what the Franklin and Marshall sectional is going to shape up like, because you've got three teams who are kind of known quantities and, all in the top 10, if not all now. Obviously, at some point over the course of the season, they all have it. And then Staten Island.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll actually talk to Jody King coming up about Staten Island, his take on them. We'll talk to Larry Anderson out of MIT as well, and we'll give a little bit of a breakdown as well. So, hey, I appreciate you taking some time to join me here on the show to start with. I'll let you get back to your more important things, and that is feeding yourself.
That'll work for my final word, yes.
There you go. I was going to say any final thoughts, but I was going to ask what are you having for dinner, but it might make us all hungry.
I'm having a turkey burger. I've had one bite out of it so far.
Oh, very good. You snuck it in there. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, hey, enjoy yourself in Chicago. I'm jealous, and I will talk to you later.
Thank you, sir. Take it easy.
Take care. Back home and joining us from the great city of Chicago. I am jealous that he is in Chicago. Yeah, I will be flat out honest. I love that city. Grew up there, if anyone didn't know. And interesting enough, I have not been to Chicago's campus. Figure that one out. We got a few more minutes before we take a break here. Coming up, Justin Hollowell, from Worcester will be joining us, and then the aforementioned Larry Anderson from MIT. Jody King joining us a little bit later in the show. We'll talk Staten Island. Don't forget, still York College women's basketball. Betsy Whitman and Adrian Scheibel will join us from Bowdoin. Our School of the Week, Chris, will have his 5 questions, so I'm afraid, everybody, you won't get to see his beautiful face unless he wants to turn around. And there you go. See, you can see it there. It's gorgeous. He will have his 5 questions. It will not be our last School of the Week 5 questions. I think what we'll do is on one of those champion teams, if not both, Chris, we'll give them a 5 question. How do you like that?
I like that. I was nervous today that, putting these questions together, thinking
it'd be your last ones of the season.
This would be the last one of the season.
And,
okay,
and maybe
good.
forever, because the Mayan Candle. No, never mind.
Oh,
I joke.
won't go there.
Well, actually, there's an interesting stat. It was actually 7 months ago that the date showed up, and no one realizes it. It's all thanks to leap year. Anyway, we'll do 5 questions with both winning coaches.
I like
How's
that.
that sound?
That sounds
you
like a plan.
that?
Yep.
All right, so we'll have a special City of Salem School of the Week then coming up whenever our final show is. I think it'll probably be next Monday, a week from Monday, I should say, because usually Sunday's a little crazy for all of us traveling back from the championships. If you got any questions for us, the chat room, if you're on our Ustream broadcast, our chat room is located, see how I can do this, right here, right up and down in this area if you're on our Ustream chat room. If you're not, see that stuff up there? That is our Twitter account and Facebook information. Facebook's more for archives, but that's our Twitter account information. And we also have email. You'll see that right at the top of your screen as well. Hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's Hoopsville at d3hoops.com. Yes, Wheaton fan, you are correct. It is free to sign up if you're on the chat room and to join the chat. There are several guests on there, as I can see. Doesn't mean much just to sign up and kind of become part of it. And then feel free to ask NJF or W Thunder 49 what you have for questions because they're pretty knowledgeable, and I'll try and answer your questions as well. But an email is also an option. You can also join us on Twitter, as we mentioned, at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. We'll check that out right now and see if there's any questions. And there are not. Very disappointing in all you people. And again, we have plenty to cover coming up. Let's quickly go to the other women's side. We mentioned the one sectional that Pat is at. That's in, if you're looking at your brackets, the lower right-hand corner. Upper right-hand corner at Mountain Union. D3, Pat is at Chicago. D3 Hoops represented at Mountain Union. Again, we're just doing production. We're not actually D3 Hoops production. These are school productions at Mountain Union. It'll be Brendan Gulick, who joined me at Transylvania on Saturday. He'll be calling the games there, as it is Carthage versus Center to start, and Illinois Wesleyan versus Mount Union. Carthage Center, fascinating matchup. Center defeating Wash U at home last weekend in the second round after getting past Guilford. They'll take on a tough team, I think, in Carthage in the Sweet 16 there. Again, teams that score in the 50s. We'll see how those two teams match up. Illinois Wesleyan versus Mount Union. This is a Mount Union team who I think has shown they are very good this season. Illinois Wesleyan, you never can count them out. They thumped Thomas More 87-50. 87-50. That's just amazing if you think about it. And this is a Thomas More team that had a 94-91 victory over Louisiana College. By the way, both Southern schools, Birmingham Southern and Louisiana, came in, with lots of questions and lost in the first round in tough games. So that's up in the upper right. Upper left, Amherst is hosting. By the way, Amherst sports a little busy this weekend. You got the men at Franklin and Marshall. The women are hosting the sectional, and they've got hockey NCAA tournament action. But at Amherst, it'll be Emmanuel, who took out Rhode Island College, taking on Kings, aforementioned Kings, without their leading scorer. That game will be at Amherst, and Amherst will also be taking on York. We'll talk to Betsy Whitman about that coming up. Amherst beat Babson earlier, and York beat Juniata to get there. And then the lower left at Mary Washington, which is in Fredericksburg, Virginia. It'll be Bowdoin versus George Fox. Those two teams actually flying there, I believe, unless Bowdoin bust for some ungodly reason. Bowdoin versus George Fox, the two flying teams there, like we had Virginia Wesleyan and Whitworth on the other side. They will be facing off in the first game, and then it's Mary Washington versus Lebanon Valley. Interesting there. These Lebanon Valley could have hosted, and there wouldn't have been a second flight for Bowdoin. Mary Washington, though, undefeated, taking on Lebanon Valley. By the way, 3 undefeated teams, I believe, on the women's side still remaining. Chicago, Amherst, and Mary Washington, though someone correct me if I'm wrong. George Fox is undefeated, if I'm not mistaken. So 4 teams there left on the women's side. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, Justin Hollowell will join us from Worcester College as more and more of you guests become registered. We appreciate it. Go Tech 73. I suspect is that an MIT fan? My gut tells me that's an MIT fan. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com here on Ustream, and it is an engineer MIT fan. Just don't screw with the chat room, you techie. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3 Hoops. We'll be back after this.
Are you an embarrassment on the dance floor? Do you confuse state capitals and read too many celebrity gossip magazines? Well, if you answered yes, you may have what it takes to adopt a teen from foster care, because teens don't need perfection, they need you. So if you think an MP3 is a computer virus, it's okay. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to put up with you. For more information, call 1-888-200-4005 or go to adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt Us Kids, and the Ad Council.
Who are you?
What are your team colors?
Who can make you cheer?
Who can bring your family and friends together?
And play your fight song?
Who can bring you to your feet?
Or bring you to your knees?
When the game is on the line, who do you want to take the last shot?
And who do you want to slap high fives, jump up and down, and yell at the top of your lungs with?
There's probably a game near you today. NCAA basketball. Who's your team?
All season long, let D3Football.com be your home for all the Division III football action on the road to the Stag Bowl. From interactive blogs and message boards to columns from around the region and around the nation on your favorite teams, nobody covers NCAA Division III better than D3Football.com. As the playoffs approach, get the scoop on who's in and who's out from the experts who picked all 32 teams last year. Don't go anywhere else. Get the info from the source for Division III football at www.d3football.com.
Who are you?
What are your team colors?
Who can make you cheer?
Who can bring your family and friends together?
And play your fight song?
Who can bring you to your feet?
Or bring you to your knees?
When the game is on the line, who do you want to take the last shot?
And who do you want to slap high fives, jump up and down, and yell at the top of your lungs with?
There's probably a game near you today. NCAA basketball. Who's your team?
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. Chris Taher in the background. You will hear from him shortly with our School of the Week, Bowdoin College. Coming up, MIT men's basketball coach Larry Anderson will be joining us. And let's see, I'm forgetting somebody. Jody King will join us, too. And on the women's side, York College women's basketball, Betsy Whitman, York of Pennsylvania. If you have questions for us, email us at hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville at d3hoops.com. You can IM us at hoopsville2000 on your AOL IM. Also, join us on Twitter at d3hoopsville or hashtag hoopsville. You also go facebook.com/hoopsville. Those are the many ways you can get a hold of us. There's also a chat room alongside. I know there's plenty of you in there. For any of you who can't make games, there, I believe our video broadcast for everything. Kings, I believe, was the only one on the women's side that did not have any video broadcasting opportunities. But on the men, everybody, I believe, should have video in some capacity, whether we are going to help them or we are just there. For example, Gordon Mann's going to Mary Washington to catch that sectional, and I will be at Franklin and Marshall to help broadcast with that. I will be working a lot there. Hopefully we can give them a great show and give you a great show. Of course, I'm probably setting myself up for failure. That's how it usually happens. But we'll be looking forward to getting up there tomorrow and giving you those 2 games up there. Plenty to look forward to. Nonetheless, if you are afar and cannot catch your team in live action. Let's jump into the Great Lakes and bring in Justin Hallowell, senior forward for the number 15th ranked Worcester men's basketball team. Justin, welcome to Hoopsville.
Hey, how you doing?
I am doing well. How about yourself, sir?
Doing pretty well.
It's always got to be well if you're in the Sweet 16. It's got to be really well if you're playing some good teams to do it. And, of course, you guys have Illinois Wesleyan who took out number 1 Hope, probably giving you guys a chance, really honestly giving you guys a chance to host this weekend. So you got to be both pleased you're playing Illinois Wesleyan, but also know you got to get down to business if they can take out the number 1 team in the country.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely know they're talented, and we'll be ready for them tomorrow.
You have the second game clearly in North Central and Wittenberg, your arch rival, will play in the first game. How surreal is it the fact that Wittenberg will be in your gym playing a basketball game not against you?
Yeah, I know. It's definitely a different feeling watching them before us. But, we wish them the best of luck.
Yeah, sure, because you want to take them out yourselves, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, you'll let them go to the Final Four instead?
No, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I had a feeling. Obviously, Worcester's had a lot of success, in recent years. You've certainly been part of that. This is yet another NCAA tournament run. From your point of view, and obviously after your success last year, what's it like to be back in the tournament?
It's definitely a great feeling. The regular season is we use it as preparation for the postseason. I think we did a good job. We didn't accomplish our goal of winning the NCAC regular season title, but we were able to put that behind us and get another tournament championship, and now there's no better feeling than just playing in the NCAA tournament and advancing each round.
Last year, making it to the championship game against St. Thomas, which ended up being almost a non-game, 78-54. You guys had beaten Williams in a tough battle the night before by 2. What did you guys take from that experience against St. Thomas and even the experience of being to the Final Four? How did you use that for this season?
I mean, I guess it was just a little bit of fuel to the fire. It showed us that, you can't just be happy to be there. Not saying all of us felt that way, but we obviously weren't prepared to be in the championship game. But I mean, it was just a great feeling, and I think this year we had a good group of guys coming back, and we had a good mixture of guys returning, guys that have been, knows what it takes to get to the Final Four, and then a good group of young guys coming in.
Yeah, let's talk about your team a little bit. You're the team's leading scorer at 14 points a game. You're pulling in 6.8 rebounds, which is also tops, handing out assists and a half a game. Certainly not too shabby, but then Xavier Brown's pouring in 13 points. You got Josh Clater pouring in 11 points and hauling in 5.3 rebounds. You guys are shooting pretty well on the season, I believe at 55%, which is not too shabby. How do you guys, talk about your team from your vantage point? What are the secrets? Who are the guys that maybe no one talks about? What's been the strategy so far?
Well, I think coming into the season, we weren't really sure what kind of team we were going to be. Xavier Brown was our leading scorer, for the first 8 or 9 games, and we were doing pretty well. And then we hit conference play and kind of, hit a roadblock. We lost 2 games in a row to Wittenberg and Wabash, and I think after that, our inside game, stepped up huge with Josh Clater being the main focus. So after that, we started feeding him the ball more and more, and that opened up things for me and the rest of the players on the outside. When he's scoring down low, it definitely helps our team a lot.
It certainly does. You mentioned the back-to-back losses to Wittenberg and Wabash. Also, DePauw entering the league this year. How much did the league change in your mind this season?
Well, this has definitely been the toughest year in the conference in my 4 years here. There wasn't one game that you could just not be ready for. You had to prepare for each team in the conference. And you knew going in it was going to be a battle, especially on the road.
Yeah, especially on the road. It proved to be tough. You ended up finishing second in the conference by 2 games. Denison knocks out Wittenberg, and then you guys had a bit of a battle against Denison in the championship game. Was that just a telling story of how good Denison had all of a sudden become, or was that showing maybe a little bit of how deep the NCAC was this year?
I think it's a little bit of both. We the past couple of years now, Denison's had a lot of talent. They just haven't really put it together. And then even at the beginning of this year, they were leading some games that they probably should have won. They had the game won a little bit, and they kind of let it slip away. So we knew how good they were going to be. They had guys like Larry Farmer is one of the most talented guys in the conference, and they had Damon Hale down low was good, and they got a bunch of very good role players. And I think at the end of the year, they kind of found out what kind of team they were, and they put it together. And as you can see, they were a very dangerous team, especially in the NCAC tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a little strange. North Central's grad assistant is Ian Franks, well known from Worcester days of playing basketball there. Do you keep in touch with guys who have moved on from the program?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Especially the seniors I graduated last year, because we were such a close knit group last year. We all loved hanging out with each other. We had a house that we all lived in, and it was a lot of fun. So. I think a lot of the guys on the team, talk to Ian and Nate and Wick probably about once a week or once every couple of weeks. So it's always nice to talk to them. It's definitely going to be a pleasant surprise to see Ian here tomorrow.
Got any breakdown on North Central yet?
Not really, no.
Talking about the Illinois Wesleyan game, obviously I don't want you to give away any game plans in case any coaches or players are watching. That wouldn't be fair. But in your mind, what do you have to do to get past the Titans at home?
Well, just from watching film, looking at their stat sheet, they're a huge team. So I think it's going to be key to be able to play defense and rebound against them, defensively. And I think, it'll come down to being tough. It's going to be a physical game. They're a physical team. And, with it being the NCAA tournament, the referees usually tend to let a lot of things go. And, we like playing that way. I'm sure other teams like playing that way too. So we just got to be tough defensively on the boards. I think, we'll have a good shot to get it done.
Not to look too far into the future, but 4 seniors on this squad. You mentioned the guys who were on last year's squad. Worcester certainly known for reloading. How does this team, in your opinion, look for the future?
Really good. Obviously, with Clater, will be back next year, and every year just Coach Moore, he's a great recruiter, and he always has guys, ready to step up like we did last year. We have a lot of guys playing this year that might not have played as much last year, but they work hard in practice, and we know how good they are, and we knew that coming into the season, the guys are going to be ready to step up.
Talking to Justin Hollowell here, senior forward for the number 15th ranked Worcester Fighting Scots. Just, I got to ask you a question. I don't know if you heard the news, but a Kings women's basketball player, senior, leading scorer on the team, comes off the bench. Decided to go. They win. They're in the Sweet 16. They're playing tomorrow night, as you are. She decides to go on her spring break to Cancun. I would love to get your take on a couple things on this. Would you ever imagine being in a situation where you have spring break coming up and you've got a trip and you've got the NCAA tournament ahead of you that you would decide to go on spring break instead?
Not really. I don't really know much, all the details about the whole situation. But we had just heard about it earlier today, and that's just, I don't think anyone on our team would do that, and I certainly don't think, Coach Moore would even allow that. But I don't understand. I don't see, I can't think of anything right now that's more fun than playing basketball as long as possible.
Well, let me ask you it this way, and it's curiosity. I assume that you would probably make spring break plans knowing you could probably have to break them, or are you the kind of mindset over your years that Worcester's probably going to be in the NCAA tournament most years, you don't even make plans?
I guess we have friends here that ask us, what do you want to do for spring break? Are you doing anything? And we just have to tell them, hopefully, we won't be able to make any plans because our ultimate goal is to be playing in March and playing during our spring break and hopefully going back to Salem.
Have you ever actually made plans and then had to break them?
No, I actually haven't.
Okay. Just very curious. Since I have a senior on the line here, I figured I'd get their point of view on something similar to this. Justin Hollowell joining us from Worcester, and appreciate you taking the time to do so. I'll probably let you go now because I know you got better things to do like studying, and of course you also have a basketball game to study for as well tomorrow night. I assume your fans will be out in force.
Yeah, definitely. Last week we had a great crowd both nights, and we always love seeing that, and hopefully they'll take advantage of the opportunity that we got to host, and we'll have another great crowd tomorrow.
Very good point. I appreciate you joining me here on the show. Thank you so much. We give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with anybody who might be listening tonight?
Just that this is the best time of the year, so they have the opportunity to go out and support any kind of basketball team that's still playing right now.
Very well done. I agree with you. Support anybody who might be out there and enjoy the games. Justin, good luck this weekend. Maybe I'll see you in Salem. If not, congratulations on a terrific year, and as I said, good luck.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
All right, take care.
You too.
Justin Hollowell joining us from Worcester Scots. Very good point, Go Tech 73, because championships are worth 1,000 trips to Cancun, YD3. I like that. That's a very good one. We'll have to keep that in mind. Did you tweet that by chance? That's pretty good. Justin Hollowell joining us here on Hoopsville. Appreciate him taking the time to do that. These guys are pretty busy, and to join us means a lot to us. We certainly appreciate them doing that. When we come back in just a minute or two, we will be talking to Larry Anderson, MIT men's basketball coach. I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to try and get everybody's different take on this story out of Kings, just because everyone probably has a different opinion on it, and so on and so forth. If you've missed the story, it's running around the chat rooms, and it's running around Twitter. It's hard to miss. We're going to take a break. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. We'll be back right after this.
Daddy, I'm only 3 years old, but when you look at me, I could see your wheels turning. You're dreaming about what am I going to be when I grow up? A major league first baseman? Maybe a point guard for a national championship team? Or the winner of the Heisman Trophy?
The odds of a child becoming a professional athlete? 1 in 16,000. The odds of a child being diagnosed with autism? 1 in 150. You know the odds of autism. Now learn some of the signs. No big smiles or other joyful expressions by 6 months. No back and forth sharing of sounds or facial expressions by 9 months. And no babbling by 12 months. To learn more of the signs and more about autism, visit autismspeaks.org.
So, Dad, let's keep dreaming the impossible while looking out for the possible, okay?
Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
So, EJ, we've designed you a signature shoe worthy of a 3-time All-American with mad smarts and sick leadership skills. Ta-da!
There are over 380,000 NCAA student athletes.
Hey, you got your GPA embossed, right?
I love it. And just about all of them will be going pro in something other than sports.
Can I get it in a loafer for casual Fridays? Yes. Yes.
Amber Alert, abducted child, African-American girl, 6 years old, suspect wearing blue shirt, black jeans.
Now when an Amber Alert is issued, you can get the same information the authorities get right on your cell phone. Sign up for free at wirelessamberalerts.org. Think of it, something as simple as a free text message could free an abducted child.
All units Amber Alert canceled. Child recovered safely. Suspect is in custody.
wirelessamberalerts.org. A child is calling for help. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
All season long, let D3Football.com be your home for all the Division III football action on the road to the Stag Bowl. From interactive blogs and message boards to columns from around the region and around the nation on your favorite teams, nobody covers NCAA Division III better than D3Football.com. As the playoffs approach, get the scoop on who's in and who's out from the experts who picked all 32 teams last year. Don't go anywhere else. Get the info from the source for Division III football at www.d3football.com.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
NCAA Women's College Basketball. All day, every day, our game. These women can really play. Filling it up, knocking them down, and bringing it home. It's basketball at its purest. For family fun and great entertainment, there's nothing like it. All day, every day, our game. NCAA Women's College Basketball.
Who are you?
What are your team colors?
Who can make you cheer?
Who can bring your family and friends together?
And play your fight song?
Who can bring you to your feet?
Or bring you to your knees?
When the game is on the line, who do you want to take the last shot?
And who do you want to slap high fives, jump up and down, and yell at the top of your lungs with?
There's probably a game near you today. NCAA Basketball. Who's your team?
And welcome into Hoopsville. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. Chris Tarr doing the heavy lifting in the background. We'll hear from him in a bit with our 5 questions for our School of the Week, Bowdoin College. Also up ahead, York College women's basketball will be joining us, and we'll talk to Jody King about Staten Island and what to make of the Dolphins, not to mention the fact what to make of the Skyline Conference and other topics, and talk to him about what he is doing these days. You remember he was a steady regional reporter for us last year and is on to different pastures this season. We'll talk to him coming up. If you have any questions for us, email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can also IM us at hoopsville2000 on your AOL IM. You can join us on Facebook. That's where we post our archives, especially, and any other information. Facebook.com/Hoopsville. That's Facebook.com/Hoopsville. You can also join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. I have to remember We were hoping by a week ago, last week, that we would be at 1,000. We are now 1,072 and still growing, as we have a few during the show here tonight. I appreciate you following us. We're closing in on D3 Hoops Twitter account. Slowly but surely, we are only about roughly 43,100 away from them. And so any MIT engineers out there who've got a way of getting me some mad followers real quick, please contact me. I would like to surprise Pat. Now joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is MIT's men's basketball coach, number 3 team in the country, Larry Anderson. Coach, welcome back to Hoopsville.
Dave, thanks for having me.
Well, I appreciate you joining us here, especially on what will promise to be a fun and exciting weekend of basketball as we are into the sectional rounds here. First off, congratulations on A, the number 3 ranking, and B, getting to this point in the season. Obviously, you're about an hour and a half from me right now, up in Amish country in and around Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It's a little bit different than New England, for sure.
Well, I hope that brings us a lot of luck, though. Because we're down here, we're in Dave's country, so that sounds pretty good. Hope we're lucky.
I'm still an hour and a half away, Coach. You aren't quite down in the crime-ridden Baltimore area, and I'm probably happy for that for you. Congratulations on getting this far. Obviously, there's been a lot of questions about your team. You started off the season quite well. You were blowing teams out. You were doing extremely well. You got into conference play, and certainly things got a little more difficult. That's understandable in some senses because obviously conference opponents like Springfield and the rest see you as a huge target and want to do their best to take you out. But it also seemed like you had to deal with some bumps and bruises along the way and some bumps in the road as well. You seem to have weathered it. You beat Farmingdale State by 20 in the last game, and you beat Skidmore by 8 in the previous game from there. How is this team doing now?
We're not as healthy as we'd like to be, and you can probably look at some of the scores and see that they were different. Conference play, certainly in the NEWMAC, in my opinion, is one of the more balanced conferences in the country. So that had a lot to do with it, and also we had a number of injuries that guys were able to play during games but not practice. We've had only 2 players in the starting lineup that's been able to practice with contact for the last, 4 or 5 weeks. We're just holding it together. And I'm just so thankful that our guys are willing to get out there and tough enough to get out there and just play through those injuries.
It can be tough this time of year because any little flaw, any little glitch, any little injury can be exploited or be the difference in what can make moving on in the NCAA tournament or not moving on. Obviously you got to do the best, and deal with the hand that's dealt. But at the same time, are you in any way trying to change the way you're coaching the team, or at least trying to change how you guys are running things to adapt to any of these hiccups?
Well, as long as we put the W up there, that's the most important thing. I think we've done it pretty well. I think we've had guys who step up in a number of areas, and as long as we keep doing what we're doing right now, I think we're going to give ourselves the chance to have some type of success. And obviously, because guys are injured and some guys might be out even this weekend, we certainly have to change what we're doing. All of us, we're trying to do it collectively because we know we can't replace any one player that plays a number of minutes for us. But we do think we can get better defensively. We think we can get better at rebounding, and we think we can get a little bit better at taking care of basketball.
One loss on the... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I think on the offensive end, we're trying to just put a wrinkle in here and there, and hopefully, that will, help us, get over the hump as we move forward.
One loss on the season. It came to WPI midway through the season, late January on the 21st. It was a 12-point loss, which surprised many of the way you guys have been playing. That was kind of where everything, got a little bit tougher on the year in a sense. You've been undefeated since. Obviously, you had made a major run and leading up to that in the first place. You got Staten Island ahead of you. This is a team that is kind of the wild card, I think, in the entire tournament right now. Well, maybe a couple others, but certainly in your pod. The Dolphins are playing pretty good basketball. They're a little bit more athletic. They're a little bit faster, at least it seems. We'll get more of their take from Jody King coming up. But from your vantage point, how are you preparing for the Dolphins? What do you expect to see on the court?
Well, I expect I've had an opportunity to watch them on DVD. The last couple of days, and you're right. I don't know if they're a wild card to people who have not seen them, but from what I've seen, they are a tremendous basketball team, and they're well coached. They're disciplined, and I just think we're going to have our hands full. It's going to be quite a challenge, for us. But here we have an opportunity to, to get ourselves prepared and try to go out and play our best basketball. So I expect it to be, quite a game, and I know they'll be well prepared as well.
The spotlight's certainly been shining brightly on the Engineers all year. You've been bouncing around the top 10 for a lot of the season. You're sitting number 3 now. Has the team felt any of that spotlight? Has it felt like extra pressure? Obviously, the NUMAC went after you guys a little bit more with that ranking, but has there felt external pressure because of that ranking?
Well, we knew that, and just like even before we became ranked in the top 10, preseason polls and higher, people always like to knock off people that are higher. David and Goliath.
Yeah.
And I don't consider us Goliath, but I think that's the way people may have looked at us.
Sure.
But we have flaws just like everybody else. But I'm really pleased with how our guys stepped up and handled, the role. With being the person with the target on their backs. So, and in the NUMAC, of course, we played those teams 2 or 3 times a year.
Right.
3 times in the conference tournament, you're going to end up playing a couple of those teams 3 times, and they brought it to us. But I think having that target on our back has really prepared us for this moment. And you talked about the loss against WPI. Our goal was never to go undefeated. If you had asked me back on October 15th that we were going to be 27-1, I would say, well, I'll take that. But we had no idea we were going to do that.
Sure.
We just wanted to try to be competitive, and each one of our guys, we never looked at it as, hey, the target is on our back. Yeah. Even though we know that's out there, we just tried to pursue our goals that we had set at the beginning of the year and try to stay true to who we are as a basketball program.
You were talking about your players and injuries and things that you've had to deal with. One of your fans is on here, and I know he's a fan because he's admitted to it. Wants to know if Billy Bender is back. Thinks he had an eye injury. I don't know if you're at liberty to say. You could be pulling a Bill Belichick on me for all I know. But any word on Billy Bender?
So Billy Bender got injured in the game against Skidmore, first game in the NCAA tournament this year. And he did not play the second game against Farmingdale State. It's going to be probably a game-time decision before we know if Billy Bender is going to be able to play. So we hope he's able to be out there, but the most important thing is Billy's health, and that's what we're concerned with most.
He obviously had started every game until that Skidmore one. Daniel McHugh, no relation, different spelling, stepped into his role there. But Billy, gives you almost 10 points a game to go with 4 other guys in double figures. Noel Hollingsworth. I'll speak.
Yeah, Hollingsworth.
Mitchell Cates, Jamie Cracker, and Will Tashman. That core, that group, averaging 30 minutes a game, essentially, has certainly been your strength. You don't go to the bench as often. You certainly play a lot of guys, but they don't have a lot of minutes. It's certainly that core that seems to be the Engineers' bread and butter. But clearly, as an injury to Bender shows, there's times where things can get a little bit interesting if you have to go elsewhere and even deeper on your bench.
Well, those guys have been practicing all year long, and they played a lot of basketball even before they came to MIT. We feel very comfortable in having to insert those guys into the game and having them play a role for us. How big that role is going to be, depends on how well they're playing. We do feel comfortable in the other 4 guys in stepping up to do what they need to do. Mitchell Cates as a point guard is capable of scoring and taking up some of the slack for Billy Bender. So is Noah Hollingsworth and one of those other 4 guys that you named. But I don't be surprised if one of the guys come off the bench that you haven't seen play very much and is able to fill that role.
You have 5 seniors on this squad. Pretty much everybody we have mentioned so far will be graduating. Interesting enough, you'll replace Billy Bender with David Bender, his brother, and a freshman on the team. How does it look for the future for MIT Engineers basketball?
Well, we think we love our young talent that we have right now. That they're coming along. It's nice to be in a position where you have a group of upperclassmen, and you don't have to throw freshmen in the fire as we did 2 years ago.
Yes.
Even though those freshmen perform pretty well, they're juniors now. This is the first time that I've been at MIT that we didn't have to do that. We were able to bring them along slowly and pass the torch the way it was supposed to be passed. Now you have 20-year-old guys playing against 20-year-old guys as opposed to true freshmen who are 17 years old playing against 20 and 21-year-old guys. So those guys who are not playing a whole lot right now, I feel very comfortable and confident that we will be competitive as we move forward, beyond this season. But again, too, as I shared with you last time, we're just focused on this one game right now.
Yeah.
We also, I think we've done a pretty nice job of identifying some kids who might be able to come in and help us right away in next year's class. We just got to hope they be admitted. Hope they can get admitted to MIT.
Yeah, well, MIT is not easy to get into. I think people probably understand that in general, but clearly you're battling more than just the other coaches when it comes to recruiting. You're certainly battling maybe your own admissions department and academic status.
Well, the other thing, we work together over here. We understand what MIT's mission is as an institution, and we only want those people who are supposed to be here. They're people who are going to be leaders in their fields, and we need to have the best and the brightest do that. And at the same time, we need to have, the good basketball player. Great student who just happens to be a basketball player is what we're looking for.
It just happens to be a basketball player. It just happens to be in the Sweet 16 and just happens to want to be going to Salem, Virginia as well. Coach, I appreciate you taking time to join us. Any regrets on not MIT still regretting the fact that they didn't have the New York Knicks phenom come to their school? He claims that NESCAC and the rest, like yourselves, weren't that interested.
Who claimed that?
Didn't Lynn claim that at some point?
No, he didn't. I don't want to sit here and jump on the Lynn Sanity bandwagon and say he was coming to MIT, but I made a very, very, very strong effort to
convince him
when he was a senior in high school. Harvard jumped in and say, "Okay, we want you over here," and that was the number one school that he wanted to go to, and we were just hoping that he was considering us strongly as well.
Well, hopefully. I mean, I think it's apples and oranges compared to MIT and Harvard in many shapes.
How so?
Oh, both very high academic institutions that happen to have basketball.
Oh, yeah, okay, all right. Okay, I'll agree with you on that one.
Hey, Coach, I appreciate you joining me. I'll obviously see you tomorrow, hopefully, and catch up with you then as well. And good luck against Staten Island. As always, we give the coach the final word, as you know. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with those who are listening tonight?
Hey, look, again, Dave, I want to thank you for having us on, and thank you for covering you and everybody at Hoopsville and D3Hoops.com. And we're looking forward to having you out here tomorrow, and hopefully you can bring some people down from Dave's country to cheer for MIT.
I will at least bring the wife and the 2-year-old. How's that work?
Okay, put some Engineers T-shirts on and come on out and cheer for us.
There you go. We'll try and work on that. Coach, thanks so much for joining us. Good luck tomorrow, as I said, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
All right, Larry Anderson joining us from MIT. Great gentleman, and I look forward to seeing him tomorrow, as I will be up at Franklin and Marshall as well. They take on Staten Island in the first game, 5:30 Eastern tip-off time. The winner of that game will take on Amherst or Franklin and Marshall. Their game at 7:30, the game on Saturday at 7 o'clock. We'll learn more about Staten Island coming up. Got to take a quick break. We're a little bit behind schedule. We want to make sure we get to our School of the Week and give Chris the amount of time he deserves to get his 5 questions in. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com right here on Ustream. We'll be back after this.
Who are you?
What are your team colors?
Who can make you cheer?
Who can bring your family and friends together?
And play your fight song?
Who can bring you to your feet?
Or bring you to your knees?
When the game is on the line, who do you want to take the last shot?
And who do you want to slap high fives, jump up and down, and yell at the top of your lungs with?
There's probably a game near you today. NCAA basketball. Who's your team?
Are you an embarrassment on the dance floor? Do you confuse state capitals and read too many celebrity gossip magazines? Well, if you answered yes, you may have what it takes to adopt a teen from foster care, because teens don't need perfection, they need you. So if you think an MP3 is a computer virus, it's okay. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to put up with you. For more information, call 1-888-200-4005 or go to adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt Us Kids, and the Ad Council.
So, EJ, we've designed you a signature shoe worthy of a 3-time All-American with mad smarts and sick leadership skills. Ta-da!
There are over 380,000 NCAA student athletes.
Hey, you got your GPA and boss, right?
I love it. And just about all of them will be going pro in something other than sports.
Can I get it in a loafer for casual Fridays?
Yes. Yes.
NCAA women's college basketball. All day, every day, our game. These women can really play. Filling it up, knocking them down, and bringing it home. It's basketball at its purest. For family fun and great entertainment, there's nothing like it. All day, every day, our game. NCAA women's college basketball.
And welcome back to Hoopsville. I'm your host, Dave McHugh, broadcasting out of the Hoopsville studios. Chris Taher will be doing his hard work in just a few minutes. Coming up, we'll be talking to York of Pennsylvania women's basketball coach Betsy Whitman. We'll also talk to Jody King on his take on Staten Island and some other interesting tidbits along the way. If you have any questions for us, email us at hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville at d3hoops.com. You can IM us at Hoopsville2000 on your AOL IM or join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville. That's at D3Hoopsville. You can also join us on Facebook later on. That's where we'll put the show on demand. Of course, it's on demand as well at d3hoops.com. You can also go to our website at d3hoopsville.com. By the way, if you're on our Twitter page or on our Ustream page, the actual Ustream page, you'll notice a chat room along here. If you're a guest, please register. It is free. You can ask questions that way along with everybody else who is in there. And certainly there's plenty of people in there chatting away as it is right now, and we appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Hoopsville tonight. We have plenty more to cover, and we will waste a little time as we do so. We will now go to our City of Salem School of the Week, and joining us from Bowdoin College is Coach Adrienne Scheibels. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Thank you so much.
I certainly appreciate you taking the time to join us. I know you're down in Fredericksburg, Virginia. I know it hasn't been that great a winter in Maine, but it's a little bit warmer in Virginia than I know it's been in Maine as of late.
Yeah, it's beautiful weather here. It's about 70 degrees today. It's beautiful.
Yes. I hate to tell you, eventually you do have to go back to Maine. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I'm warning you now. Having been from Maine myself, I know March can be a very strange part of the year. So, well, congratulations on getting this far. Obviously, going to Mary Washington is your reward for, A, knocking off Southern Maine in the first game, and I know that was a battle. And then you took out Ithaca, who had thumped Elms in the game, and those games were at Ithaca. For starters, how strange was it to play another Maine team, 6.5, maybe 7 hours away from home?
Yeah, that was strange, and kind of a loss for our state, because I know I was talking to Jill Henrikson's dad after the game, and I know he commented to us that he thought, we would have had a huge crowd if the game had been in Maine, but can't complain too much. It's just exciting to be in the tournament, and Ithaca, they were great hosts, very nice people there, so it all worked out.
I work in television news, and I believe one of the reasons that Olympia Snow said that she wasn't rerunning was because the game was sent to Ithaca. No truth to that rumor, by the way. I just heard reports. And obviously, you get past them. Then you take on Ithaca at home, and you squeak past them by 4. It looks close. Was it that close? How good was Ithaca?
It was that close. Ithaca's a great team. They really did a wonderful job on the boards. We struggled to keep them off the boards, and it's kind of ironic that when it came down to it, it was an offensive board on our part that sort of won us the game. But they're also a good defensive team. I was really impressed with their defensive effort, and I thought at the end of the day it was our defense that really prevented them from, shooting a high percentage, and so we just sort of got them right there at the end.
I'm assuming you flew to Fredericksburg in some senses, probably out of Portland into Dulles, I'm guessing. I hope you guys didn't take the bus route.
No, we did fly, but we went into Richmond.
You went into Richmond. Well, that's not bad either. It's
Yeah.
pretty close to. Actually, that might be a better airport to go into than Dulles. And obviously, you're taking on the other team that flew in this sectional, George Fox. Clearly one of the top teams in the country according to the D3Hoops.com poll, and I even think the WBCA has them pretty highly ranked. You've probably seen plenty of tape on George Fox. And probably gotten a few scouting reports yourself. How are you preparing for this team? How are you preparing for tomorrow's game?
Yeah, we have seen a great deal of film on them. I mean, they're a fantastic team. They have big size, which is going to be I think our greatest challenge, because we've had some injuries to a couple of our top posts. So, but we're preparing for them just like we would any other game. I really love the attitude of our kids. They're playing fearlessly right now, and they have a lot of confidence. And so we want to keep it rolling.
Keep it rolling would be nice, certainly. In Fredericksburg, as we mentioned, taking on George Fox. Let's talk about your team just a little bit. Being led, sorry, I had a mouse click go wrong. Being led by Jill Hendrickson, nearly 17 points a game. Caitlin Donahoe and Amy Hackett at 9.8 and 8.1 respectively, and plenty of other players like Ellery Gould and Alexa Berry are certainly scoring a lot for you. All those, except for Donahoe, are seniors on this squad. Clearly that is your bread and butter at this point in time. I suspect it takes very little motivation to get them ready for a tournament game being seniors.
Yeah, that's right. We have 5 amazing seniors. I mean, they're wonderful people, leaders, students, and players. And so you're absolutely right. I mean, they're all super motivated. They don't want their careers to end. And then, like I said, they're so amazing that their teammates want to play incredibly hard to keep them on the court. So yeah, it doesn't take a lot. These are 5 just wonderful people.
And of course, you've been there the entire time. You're in your 4th season with them. You're 91-25 in those 4 years. No pressure for next year. Polar Bear is probably expecting another great season, but what's been the experience like up there? Clearly you're a Mainer. You graduated from Bates.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I love it at Bowdoin. I mean, yes, I'm from Maine. I think there's no better state out there, and so it's wonderful to be back in Maine, to be at a great institution like Bowdoin. Fantastic community. We get incredible support in the greater Brunswick area. I mean, it's just been nonstop phone calls and emails, while we've been in the NCAA tournament. We just get fantastic support. So it's been wonderful, and I couldn't ask for better student athletes to work with.
You've gone through a rather interesting set of schools in your career for varying reasons. Bates, as we mentioned, you graduated from. You went to Babson and was basketball and soccer coach at Colby. You were also enrolled at Smith College and got your master's there. You were also assistant and then head basketball coach at Elms. Then you went on to Swarthmore down in the Centennial Conference, down into our neck of the woods down here. And then after that, at some point you returned back to the state of Maine, taught school and were head of athletics at a prep school, Gould Academy, and now you're back into college basketball and you're at Bowdoin. That's one heck of a road.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is. But I mean, each step along the way has really, provided me with, a new experience that has made me the coach that I am today, and I'm really grateful for each and every opportunity that I've had.
You're one of 3 teams remaining from the NESCAC, Amherst, Tufts being the other 2. Tufts is out in Chicago. Amherst is at home. Amherst has certainly gotten the spotlight, going 29-0 and 10-0 in the conference. You were 3 games behind them in conference, and earlier in the season lost a close one, 63-59 to Amherst. Against Tufts, you lost to them in the semifinals of the NESCAC, 55-40. And earlier in the season had beaten them by 1. What can you tell us about those 2 teams? I've seen Amherst in person. I certainly know a lot about them, but tell the viewers at home a little bit about those 2 teams and maybe what makes them so dangerous.
Yeah, Amherst just has so many offensive weapons. They're just, you can't just focus on one person. They're balanced and they're deep and they're athletic. So I mean, I just think they're a fantastic team, obviously well coached, and their defense is good too. I mean, they're just it's tough to get to the rim on them. They're long and lengthy, so they can get out to shooters. They're just they don't change it up a lot offensively. They do what they do, but they do it extremely well. And then Tufts is just a phenomenal defensive team. I mean, I think that's just their bread and butter. Their offense can be a little inconsistent, but again, they're a balanced team. And as long as they're hitting their shots, they're tough to beat. So I think both squads will do well.
And clearly, you got ahead of you, George Fox, and you're down there with another undefeated team. George Fox not only, but also Mary Washington. So certainly the road is not easy for Bowdoin. But anything is possible, as anybody knows, in the NCAA tournament, and so we don't want to count anybody out. We've seen it certainly many ways. How are you, though, getting this team ready? Obviously, this is a lot of travel for a team that probably doesn't do this much travel. You had to go to Ithaca, return. You had to fly to Richmond, as you pointed out, and et cetera. How is this team handling all the travel?
Yeah, it has been a lot. I mean, we feel like we just got home from Ithaca. We didn't get home till late on Sunday, and had a few days to prepare to fly down here. And in the middle of all of that, we're in midterms, which has been challenged to balance all of that. These are students first, and so we proctored a final or a midterm today. We have 2 more exams tomorrow morning. So this is the Division III experience right here. But you know what? The kids are so excited to be here that it's just, they got on the plane, they were cheering, clapping. They're just, we're all just thrilled to be here and to be at Mary Washington and have this opportunity to play George Fox tomorrow.
I assume you flew commercial. I'm sure everybody on the plane was trying to figure out what in the world was going on.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to ask you this because it's made news today, and it's regarding women's basketball, and so I would love to get your take on it. The story being a Kings senior who's comes off the bench, team's leading scorer, according to the reports, decides to go on her spring break to Cancun, is not with the team on their Sweet 16 run. Apparently was news to the team and the coach as they found out after the fact. This is all according to the report. Have you ever been in a situation in basketball where spring break has become a problem in the sense of scheduling because of the NCAA tournament, whether as a player or as a coach? Or have you ever had a player come up to you and go, I've got a bit of a snag?
No, I can't imagine that happening. I mean, we actually start break, this weekend.
Sure.
So it's been, something that we've overlapped between, being in the NCAA tournament and spring break a lot, but it's never been an issue. And my heart just goes out to the Kings players, the team, the coaches. I just can't imagine what that must feel like. And I actually heard the news from one of the annual assistant coaches played for me, Katie Bergeron, and she texted me to tell. I was just floored by that. And honestly, my heart goes out to some of the other teams that could have received an large bid and who would have had different priorities in that moment. So I just think it's kind of sad.
Have you ever actually discussed it with your team? Have you said, have your players come to you? Go, how do we handle this? Do we have? Should I plan for it and just bail out on it? Do you ever have players have to come up with you going, what do we do about spring break?
No, honestly, I mean our program, we just have the expectation. It's a priority for us. It's a goal that we set each and every year to be in the NCAA tournament. This is what we work so hard for all year. And so they just know that we're going to take it as far as we can. And if, God forbid, it ends, then the plans start to go home and visit their families or go on break. It's really never been an issue.
Interesting. I was just kind of curious and obviously as a player, it comes up, and you've been a player and a coach, and I just loved getting your take on that, so I appreciate it. You are our City of Salem School of the Week, and the City of Salem is our proud sponsor. If anybody's going to the men's Final Four, City of Salem is the proud host, and tickets are available to go to Salem Civic Center. I know it's strange to talk about the men's tournament with a women's coach, but it's all right, Coach. Tickets are available for Holland, Michigan as well, and certainly Bowdoin would love to be there to be dancing in Holland, which will mean some more travel, by the way. But as you're our School of the Week, we have a little fun with you. We hope you don't mind. Chris Taher, our producer, does some research on Bowdoin and does 5 questions. So far, our leader in the clubhouse, I believe, Chris, was it 4 out of 5 this year?
4 out of 5
and
is
no
the
one's,
leader.
And no one's done worse than 2, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Boy, the pressure's on.
That's right.
The pressure is on. I will tell you now, some of these questions are from college reports, like U.S. News and World Report. I don't know where Chris gets his information. It also is history on the school, history on the athletics program, history maybe on your program in particular. They range from easy to hard. They used to start easy and get harder. Chris has thrown a wild card in this year. And I will tell you, I will be hearing them for the first time, too. I promise you, though, no Chicago Cubs-based questions. Just because Chris almost lost his job with me over those. But otherwise, I wish you good luck. So I hope you don't mind. Chris has 5 questions for you.
All right, Coach, here we go. First question. You guys are playing in Fredericksburg this weekend. Which famous Union general and Bowdoin grad featured prominently in the Battle of Fredericksburg during the Civil War?
He started easy. Sorry.
Oh.
I hope you know this, Coach.
If I don't get this one, I'm in big trouble.
You are
back
in major trouble. Major trouble. There's only one person.
We were just talking about this at lunch.
I did a history paper on him in college.
Joshua Chamberlain.
There you go.
That's correct. Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain.
By the way, Chris, what battle actually made him famous?
I think I'm asking the questions here, Dave.
No, Battle of Gettysburg.
Okay.
He stopped the South from getting up Little Round Top. You've seen the movie, have you not?
It's been a while.
Oh, jeez. Sorry,
you
Coach.
did a paper,
He's apparently
though. Good
not
job.
done enough research.
All right. Very good. Second question. Only one other college in the nation is nicknamed the Polar Bears. Who is it?
Wow.
Okay. I think this is a trick question. I think we're the only college nicknamed the Polar Bears, right?
There is one
There
other.
is one other one. We'll let you take a guess. There is one other school. Pat's already got him. I hate to say it.
Sorry, I don't know.
Ohio Northern is the other school.
Yeah. How does Ohio Northern name themselves
Also
the
the
Polar Bears?
All right, Dave, do you know why Bowdoin is nicknamed the Polar Bears?
Actually, I don't.
That would be because Admiral Robert E. Peary led the first successful expedition of the North Pole in 1908.
Graduate of Bowdoin.
Bowdoin grad, that's
there
right.
You go.
All right, Coach, 1 for 2, not bad. Question number 3. As Dave alluded to, you were a Bates grad, and when you graduated in 1991, you were the all-time leading rebounder there with 771. Unfortunately, that record does not still stand. Who owns the new record?
Wow, that's an interesting question.
I am going to guess Olivia Zurich.
Olivia Zurich is correct.
Well
05.
done, Coach.
Very nice.
Well done. 2 for 3. Not
right.
bad at all. By the way, I've gotten texts and emails on Ohio Northern. It's ridiculous. It's going out of their minds here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I just couldn't believe that many people knew that one as fast as they did. Granted, one of them comes from the same
one's
conference, and one's from Pat, so it's not totally fair for you. But
all right, question number 4. Which coach in Bowdoin athletics history has won more games than any other?
Her.
Ooh, tough one. some great coaches in our department.
Yes.
But I heard the other day that Coach Terry Mahar is approaching 500 wins, so I'm going to guess Terry Mahar.
Terry Mahar is correct. Current men's ice hockey coach, 475 wins.
3 out of 4, Coach. No pressure.
All right.
But you're closing in on the leader here as we make the turn.
Closing in on the tie in the record. Here we go.
Wow, she knows her stuff here.
Yeah, she's doing pretty well.
Very good.
Final question. Can you name the 5 Bowdoin athletic programs to have reached their Final Fours?
Women's basketball, obviously. Field hockey.
Field hockey's correct.
Women's lacrosse went last year.
Yep, that's the rate. 2 more.
Men's soccer went the season before last.
Men's soccer's correct, and you're missing 1 more.
Women's ice hockey.
Oh, she nailed it. Yes.
Gosh.
Way to go.
She's on top of her
Sweep
game.
the last question.
Either that or there's somebody whispering in her ear.
4 out of 5. Great job, Coach. That's puts you atop the leaderboard right now.
Pat Coleman was
Great.
4 out of those.
Did
He missed 1. He had women's soccer in there. So.
Okay.
Well, Coach, 4 out of 5. Congratulations. I'm impressed.
Thank you.
I don't know why he thought you wouldn't know Josh Chamberlain, because you're right. You probably wouldn't return to Bowdoin if you didn't know that one.
Well, you said starting off easy, so.
Well, at least you.
No.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to survive. You wouldn't be allowed back into the Bangor area for that matter.
I really wouldn't be.
No, not at all. Well, Coach, I appreciate you joining us here on Hoopsville and being a good sport with our School of the Week. 5 questions, 4 out of 5. Our new co-leader, I appreciate it. Only 2 have done that this year. So thank you so much for having fun with us. As always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with us tonight?
No, just thanks for having me on, and shout out to everyone back home in Maine. We really appreciate all of the support. So we're excited to play tomorrow.
Hey, you gonna have a good? You having anybody travel? Do you know down?
I'm sorry?
You guys have anybody traveling down for the games? Do you think?
We have a bunch of parents coming.
Good.
Yeah, so we're pretty excited about that.
Good. Well, good luck tomorrow night against George Fox, and if you win against whoever you end up playing, whether it be Mary Washington or Lebanon Valley. And thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, thank you.
All right, take care. Adrian Scheibels joining us from Bowdoin College. Wow. The second you started to ask that first question, Chris, I knew where you were headed.
Good.
Like, the fact you don't know his real history is disturbing me, Chris.
Well, you did 1 paper on him, so you're the expert now?
Have you seen the movie? They credit him for being the only guy, the reason that the North didn't get annihilated at Gettysburg. Jeez. And plus, I went to Goucher and went to Gene Baker's class. You know, that's just part and parcel. We're going to take a break. On the other side, Jody Davis will join us. We'll talk Staten Island and a little bit of Atlantic basketball with him and find out what he's been doing all season. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3. I said Jody Davis, didn't I? Darn it! That's my Cubs trivia right there. Who was the catcher for the Cubs in the '84 year? Jody King will be joining us. Not Jody Davis. That'd be a whole nother show. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. We'll be back after this.
Who are you?
Who can make you cheer?
And play your fight song?
Who can bring you to your feet?
Or bring you to your knees?
When the game is on the line, who do you want to take the last shot?
NCAA basketball. Who's your team?
Abducted child, African-American girl, 6 years old. Suspect wearing blue shirt, black jeans.
Now when an Amber Alert is issued, you can get the same information the authorities get right on your cell phone. Sign up for free at wirelessamberAlerts.org. Think of it, something as simple as a free text message could free an abducted child.
All units Amber Alert canceled. Child recovered safely. Suspect is in custody.
wirelessamberAlerts.org. A child is calling for help. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
All season long, let D3Football.com be your home for all the Division III football action on the road to the Stag Bowl. From interactive blogs and message boards to columns from around the region and around the nation on your favorite teams, nobody covers NCAA Division III better than D3Football.com. As the playoffs approach, get the scoop on who's in and who's out from the experts who picked all 32 teams last year. Don't go anywhere else. Get the info from the source for Division III football at www.D3Football.com. D3Football.com.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
So, EJ, we've designed you a signature shoe worthy of a 3-time All-American with mad smarts and sick leadership skills. Ta-da!
There are over 380,000 NCAA student athletes.
Yeah, you got your GPA and boss, right?
I love it. And just about all of them will be going pro in something other than sports.
Can I get it in a loafer for casual Fridays?
Yes. Yes.
And welcome back to Hoopsville. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. By the way, the history lesson, getting quite a bit of banter in the chat room. If you're watching us on Ustream, on the actual Ustream channel, our chat room is right here alongside. Someone asked if I had read the book Killer Angels based on the 20th Maine. Yes, I have read that book. Chris apparently has not read that book or seen the movie based on that book.
He's a communications major, all right?
I was business major. I took a history class at my liberal arts college. Oh, that's right. You went to McDaniel, formerly known as Western Maryland. Yes, I'm actually being able to show a little intellect here. It's kind of fun. But Chris went to another school, and I'm sorry. He's wearing a University of Chicago shirt. Some asked if it's the only clean one we had. I'm not sure where he got the shirt. I think he took it home with him.
That was here.
Oh, was it here?
Yeah.
Very nice. We have some shirts that we have collected over the years from a lot of different schools. That is one of them. I don't fit into it, unfortunately, so Chris gets to wear it. But we have worn them throughout the year, and I'm wearing an old, defunct Pride of Maryland basketball tournament shirt. That is my shirt of choice today, but we get to have fun, and that's how we recognize some of the D3 schools out there. Just because we have the shirts, we want to wear them and make this a true D3 show. So hope you don't mind, and we've even had some coaches send us some shirts. I got another email today, by the way, Chris. So if we get more in the off season, we'll have more to wear next year. If not, not a big deal. We can wear our regular clothes, and our wives can look at us without having a very strange look on their face. I'm sure McGrath and Roselle would love to send us other shirts as well. Fair point. But we'll let them do it. We certainly don't want to impose or push that type of topic too far. Hey, let's talk a little bit here. Where fun comes to die. By the way, there is one shirt I've been meaning to hang up. It's the old shirt from our good friend Die Hard fan. April gave us a unique shirt many, many moons ago. We'll hang that up in the back of our studio maybe by the end of the season here. We got a couple more shows to get that done with. But I will not talk about why that shirt is so important to the show, because we're trying to forget that kind of history. But let's go to the Hoopsville hotline. And speaking of history, we bring back a former regional reporter of ours from the Atlantic region, Jody Davis. Jody King. I'm just having a little fun with you, Jody. From Hostas men's basketball coach at a junior college. I said hostess earlier. I'm terribly sorry about that. But if it was hostess coach, you would pretty much be guaranteed to live, I believe, through a nuclear explosion.
Well, Dave, you're right on some parts. It is hostos, not hostess or hosta. And I wish I was a Chicago Cub catcher, because then I'd be living pretty large right now, but I'm not, so it's okay.
Yeah, Jody Davis, the great of 84. I can name off that starting roster, but we'll move on with our history here. We've already stuck ourselves into Civil War history quite a bit tonight. We'll talk a little bit about what you've been up to recently, or in this whole season for that matter. As one person remembers, Harry Carey singing Jody Davis. I agree with you. Singing might have been the interesting word. Drunkenly slurring might have been the best way to describe that. Hey, got you on because obviously one team you certainly know well in this tournament because of your coaching days in Division III would be the Staten Island Dolphins. You certainly know those teams in the greater New York City area pretty well. They'll be taking on MIT tomorrow night at Franklin and Marshall. And I wanted to get your take on the Dolphins from what you know and from what you've gathered from other coaches, especially from your coaching days and from today. What do we make of these Dolphins who knocked off Rhode Island College by 10 to get to this game, and previously before that at home beat Ithaca, I think far more handily than a lot of people thought would happen. I think some people thought Ithaca could even pull an upset there.
Well, Dave, first of all, thank you for having me back. I've missed you guys. And by the way, Dave, it looked like Chris was a little smitten with the coach from Bowdoin, wasn't he?
He might have been. He might have been. I did not mention that she was married.
Then that ends all conversation. Okay, let's talk about Staten Island.
Apparently, he thought about saying something and decided against it. I think maybe he realizes other people could be listening.
Well, good choice then by Chris, and it's good to be back, guys. And it's good to hear you guys, and thank you for having me. And let's talk a little Staten Island basketball. And when you talk Staten Island Dolphin basketball in the City University of New York Athletic Conference, the CUNYAC, you're talking about one guy and one guy only, and that's Tony Petosa.
Yeah.
And boy, guys, what a job he has done. He's been there for about 21 years, over 300 wins, averaging about 15 wins per year. He had a couple of down years recently. There was some changes in academic standards to the college, and he had to adjust his recruiting. And since then, he's been rocking and rolling, and this is not an overnight program. College of Staten Island with Coach Petosa has won big games before, has played in big games, has won conference tournaments, has gone to postseason play before. And, yes, they beat Ithaca 98-73. But this is a team that has not lost this year. They've won 19 games in a row. Their last loss goes back to December 30th against a team that's also playing this weekend, Illinois Wesleyan, by a score of 90-79. So even in that game, it was a close game. This is a good team, and what a lot of people don't know is they're not just winning because, hey, maybe you say the CUNYAC might not be the strongest conference, or, the Atlantic region might not be the strongest. That's all hogwash at the end of the day. 19 wins is 19 wins. They're shooting 50% from the field, 41% from three. They're averaging close to 40 rebounds per game, and they're led by senior transfer T.J. Tibbs, who, Dave, he's unbelievable. If you're talking about a guy that can lead a team in a guard spot, T.J. Tibbs is that guy. He's only 5'10". He's a Division I transfer. You need 40 points? Boom, he'll give you 40 points, as he did the other night against Rhode Island College, shooting 10 of 18 from the field, 14 of 14 from the free throw line. But if you need him to share the ball like he's done all year, he's averaging 6 assists per game. And then you add him with players such as Lucci McGore, and Dave, I love that name, Lucci McGore, right?
Great name.
If that wasn't a New York City name, I don't know what is. But Lucci McGore, 17 and 7 a game, 5 rebounds as a sophomore. Javon Cox, 8 points per game as a freshman. Their other impact senior, Jordan Young, 16 and a half with 8 rebounds a game. You're talking about a well-balanced team here, and it's a good team. And, I know MIT beat Farmingdale State last week, who we're quite familiar with. But Staten Island is going to present a different sort of matchup for MIT, and they're two really good teams going at it, and it should be one hell of a contest.
Here's my question, and you have alluded to it. Yes, 19 in a row. Yes, their last losses to Illinois Wesleyan. And yes, they play in the CUNYAC, and I'm not trying to take anything away from the CUNYAC, but it's not exactly brought in any world beaters into the NCAA tournament. If memory serves, Hunter is the last team to get this far. Before that, it's been quite a while. So a lot of people, and you mentioned the Atlantic region, and William Patterson certainly did not represent very well for the Atlantic region. But, what do we make of these 19 wins? I know they beat some good teams to get here. I think the win over Rhode Island College is pretty telling. You mentioned Tibbs. I believe, by the way, was there one of those players who had thought about going to the NBA?
That was Tibbs.
That was Tibbs. And obviously these guys are athletic and certainly know how to play basketball, and Coach has shown he can certainly coach. But now we're at the nitty-gritty. You play a team like MIT, and if not MIT, you're going to take on Franklin and Marshall or Amherst in the Elite Eight. Is this Dolphins team that legit, and is this Dolphin team capable of playing now against some of the bigger boys of Division III basketball.
They're there. They've won. They deserve it. Absolutely. Here's what I have to say to that is they have a chance to, if they win their next game, they have a chance of being one of 3 teams in the Atlantic region that's made the Elite Eight of recent memory. You mentioned Hunter of Farmingdale State College a couple of years ago as well within the Atlantic region made the Elite Eight. And on that run within the Atlantic region, you had Richard Stockton.
Yes.
So you have a bunch of teams that on any given year, depending on recruiting class, depending on eligibility, there are some teams that can play. Now, granted, some teams, didn't play, might have played a harder schedule, so to speak. But at the end of the day, what we tell our guys is to win one basketball game is difficult. And if you can win 19 in a row, let's see everyone else do it too. So obviously, they're good at what they do. They've been successful in what's in front of them. And they've gotten to the Sweet 16. They won the past 2 games last weekend. They did what they're supposed to do. They're in a great spot tomorrow. And if you look at MIT a couple of years ago was upset by Farmingdale State.
Yes.
They got their revenge last week. But to me, it's a winnable game for Staten Island. Staten Island has deserved it. They absolutely have the right to be there. And I think they're going to represent well. Now,
Very
Dave,
good.
if they go there and lose, this is only one man's opinion. So take it for what it's worth.
No, I appreciate it. Trust me, you've got a better vantage point on the Dolphins than a lot of people would have had, and I'm fascinated to see what happens tomorrow night as well in the first game at Franklin and Marshall. Again, tip off at 5:30, I should say. Let me ask you 2 other questions, and start with the D3 news first. And we talked about this coming from a coach's point of view and coming from a former Division III coach yourself. A senior player in the middle of the NCAA tournament decides to take off for her spring break to Cancun while her team is preparing and for the Sweet 16 themselves. Apparently, from what the published report is, the player did not happen to tell her coach or players that she was leaving for Cancun. Obviously, he's off the NCAA roster, and if they were to get to the Final Four, I highly doubt she'll be making the trip to Holland. Have you ever been in a scenario where you have had players come to you and say, listen, I've got this trip I planned, or not? I know maybe March Madness has not been focus number 1 necessarily, but have you ever heard of such a situation?
Dave, I got to be honest with you. We encountered, I'm sure for some of the coaches that may be listening, this is not something new. When you look at Thanksgiving break, when you look at Christmas break or winter recess, and you're telling your young men and young women who are student athletes, hey, you got to come back to campus. No one's going to be here. Come live in the dorms.
Right.
We're going to play basketball for 2 weeks.
Right.
And they're seeing all their friends home having fun.
Sure.
They're saying, let me think about this for a second. And the only reason why I take this different perspective is because what we discuss with our guys all the time, and I'm sure some other coaches that are listening might agree, might not, but hopefully they will, that choosing to play college basketball is a lifestyle. We don't call it a job, but it really, Dave, at the end of the day, it's a lifestyle.
Sure.
And there are a lot of student athletes, particularly at this level, that have a lot of difficulty understanding that. And not saying what this particular student athlete did is right or wrong, because I don't know the entire story, and it wouldn't be fair to me to comment without knowing the whole story. It's upsetting she left her teammates at this time. It's upsetting she left her coach at this moment, but we don't know the whole story. But at the end of the day, people make decisions. People have to live with their decisions. And there are just some student athletes that don't understand what it is to be a student athlete who engages with basketball as a lifestyle. Now, for me, I want to go to Cancun right now. If there's anybody with extra tickets laying around, Dave, you, me, and we'll take Chris with us. Let's go.
All right. Sounds good. Unfortunately, I have some responsibilities I have to attend to this weekend.
And David, will just be me and Chris. We'll tell you about all the stories.
I'm in, Jody. Let's do it.
I just do not like this. Mutiny on the Hoopsville. Hey, let's quickly talk about your thing. We're a little bit behind schedule. As it always happens. You moved on to a different realm these days. You're now at a junior college coach, and certainly have seen the light in a different way and have seen some different things after a year away from basketball. What's it been like to be a a junior college coach and take over a program that has certainly struggled and now is kind of coming along. These players will move on to Division III schools, Division II schools, Division I, even NAIA schools.
David, it's been a great experience. You know, there's a stigma, a purported stigma out there of junior college basketball, which I've always chuckled at, because even when we were at Maritime, we recruited from California junior colleges, Texas junior colleges, Florida junior colleges as well. So now to go to a certain part of basketball that we use as a tremendous recruiting tool at Maritime, in which we had great success, it's been a tremendous transition. I mean, Dave, you guys last year gave me the opportunity to stay in basketball and report and broadcast, and I'm forever grateful. But as you know, coaching has been in my blood, and the opportunity came up to coach at Hostos, and the administration's been unbelievable. From my athletic director, Carol Cascio, who was a Division I softball coach, at Temple, Penn, and Drexel for years, just has been a tremendous mentor and just a tremendous support to have, along with our VP, Nathaniel Cruz. I mean, I've been blessed. I really can't answer anything else. And our student athletes have been unbelievable, Dave. You know, at the end of the day, we have 95% retention, 2.16 GPA, which for junior colleges, those numbers are terrific. And on top of it, we had a 19-win season this year. We were 19-9, most wins since Hostos won the national championship in 2005-06. And it's a little bit different because you have a guy on our roster like Charles Jackson who has an opportunity to play Division I basketball. You have Brandon Stoltz, Wendell Appleton, and guys like that with a chance to be scholarship student athletes at the Division II level. And then you have some freshmen that are just coming in that, you know, maybe should be at the NCAA D3 level, or maybe some D2s just might have overlooked them that we got, particularly Jeremiah Brown, who this time next year should really be a Big East recruit. That's how well we can shoot the basketball. And, you know, we've just been blessed with having these guys and buying into our system. And, you know, at times, Dave, I could be a little bit up and down as far as, you know, getting these guys and pushing these guys and being a little bit nuts at times. But that's what it's about. And we just had a great year. And, you know, the amazing thing is I really wish being in the metropolitan area, you know, the Atlantic region, a lot of these teams, I really wish they came and saw a lot of our guys play. The Farmingdale States were there, the Mount St. Vincent's were there, the Polytechnics were there, Sages were there. But I really wish a lot of these other teams were there to recruit our student athletes because they have so much to offer and they can do so much. You know, it's just a great experience. Hey, we're playing one night. We're playing against a 6'8" wing who signed to go to Wichita State. The next night, you know, we're playing against the guy who's supposed to go NCAA Division II in Claude Blue. And, you know, other nights we're playing against teams that, you know, are comparable to Farmingdale, comparable to Ramapo and Staten Island. And it's just a great coaching challenge to really get out there and just kick butt, to be blunt. And, you know, once again, keeping me in the business, I owe you guys a whole bunch of thanks as well. Well, so let's go Caymans and let's go Hostos basketball.
Well, I appreciate you joining us. I know you want to help that program. I don't see you leaving anytime soon, but do you ever see yourself back into Division III or any four-year schools?
As long as you guys keep having me on here and do announcing, I get my fill. I'm quite happy. But, you know what? Hostos has been unbelievable. They've been just so great to me. Do I miss the NCAA four-year level? Absolutely. I say to my guys all the time, if I had them for another 2-3 years, I mean, we would be in 2 to 3 straight NCAA tournaments, and we would be a Sweet 16 Elite Eight basketball team. And those that have seen us, that are listening, would agree with us. And, you know, we don't have that opportunity. And you know what? The challenge, Dave, it's a little bit bigger of a challenge because it's a rotating door every 2 years, and you're coaching against some really good coaches. John Matejko, and I got his name right, at St. Joe's, is one great coach. But, you know, every night you're going up against John Matejko's and Eric Smiles and Johnny Halperts and guys like that. And it's really helped me grow as a basketball coach. And hey, whoever thought I'd be happy in the South Bronx? But Yankee basketball, Coach King and Hostos, Yankee baseball, excuse me. I mean, what's better in the South Bronx?
We're not going there. Not going to go there. But, hey, Jody, I appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight. Thanks for giving your take on Staten Island. I certainly appreciate it. I hope the fans appreciate it as always. And as always, we'll give you, since you are the coach in this scenario, the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share?
Well, Dave, I have to say hello to Mr. Coleman and Mr. Rossi. If I don't say hello to those two, I'm doing our brotherhood a shame, right?
Yes, probably true.
So, hello to you, gentlemen. Guys, thank you for having me back. Unfortunately, our season is over, but to everyone else that's still playing, go get it done. Dave, I'm actually going to catch a flight in 24 hours to go down to Florida to recruit. So I'm going to take some time, and even though I think it's 95 degrees down there, Dave, I'm going to be in a gym watching basketball. So I can't ask for anything better right now. So I'm happy. Everything's going well, and once again, thank you for having me back.
Chris, sorry, Cancun's out. Hey, Coach, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Be well, guys. Take care.
All right, Jody King joining us here on Hoopsville. Chris is going to work on getting our next coach on since we are way behind schedule. If you have any questions for us, email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can IM us at hoopsville2000 on your AOL IM. You can also join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville. That's at D3Hoopsville. We'll hopefully hear from you there as well, or you can follow us. You can also join us in the chat room. Over here, there is a link or a chat room if you're on the Ustream page. If you're not on the Ustream page, use those other avenues, the email, the Twitter, etc., and that will be ways you can contact us. And you're right, NJF. I had said on the chat room that I was on the floor laughing. Clearly, I am not on the floor, and I am not laughing. But it was a pretty funny comment in the chat room, so I appreciate it. Taranaki, as I'm guessing your username is. We did notice that the story we've been talking about was picked up by Deadspin. I'm sorry the URL is removed. We kind of just be careful with that stuff. We don't want any spam going out on our chat room. So I apologize for that, but Deadspin did pick up on the story we're talking about. Again, email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can IM us at hoopsville2000 on your AOL IM. We do use AOL IM. Join us on the chat room, as we mentioned. You can also join us on Twitter as well. We certainly will appreciate it if you find a way to interact with us. And we are running a little bit behind schedule, so we're going to get right to our next coach, and that is York women's basketball coach Betsy Whitman. York, of course, of Pennsylvania. And, Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you taking the time. Saw you very quickly a few weeks ago as I was up your way to see Coach Gamber's big game. Not in his final home game, but the big game against Mary Washington, which they won, and certainly used that momentum well into the NCAA tournament. You, in the meantime, have used momentum quite well. 5 losses on the season. Unfortunately, 3 of them come to Mary Washington. But you've knocked off Juniata last weekend after beating St. Vincent prior to that. And your reward is a lovely trip to Central Massachusetts to take on the number 1 team, an undefeated team in Amherst. I'm sure you're smiling ear to ear.
I am. We're looking at it as a great challenge. And, if you want to eventually become national champs, you have to get past Amherst at some point, and we're meeting them kind of early. But we're just really excited about the opportunity to be here and play such a great team. And, my team's not really afraid of anybody. So, we're coming up here with the mentality that we're not just here to compete, we're here to win. So we still have a fairly young team, but we have a great team this year. We played out of our minds at Juniata and beat a very good Juniata team and St. Vincent. And, we're excited to be back to the Sweet 16 again.
Lost to Johns Hopkins to start the season, then rebounded quite well. Lost to William Patterson at one point, who got upset by Kings last weekend. And again, the only other 3 losses, all to Mary Washington. By varying degrees but similar outcomes, though you nearly knocked them off in the CAC championship game, losing by 4 in a low-scoring affair there. Was there any surprise that you made the NCAA tournament, or did you kind of half expect you would?
I expected that we would. I really felt we would get in as an at-large. Obviously our goal was to win the conference championship, and and we knew we'd have to beat Mary Wash to do it. And, they have a great team this year. Obviously, they're undefeated. And we came very close the last 2 times we played them. But, after it was all said and done, it was kind of a different situation for us where, it wasn't the automatic. And it wasn't, the year we had 3 years ago where we knew we were getting in the tournament. We had to kind of sit and wait. But I felt pretty confident that, being 22-5, and having people look at our team, I felt like we had a real good chance of getting in the tournament. And I think we proved that we deserve to be here. So I'm really proud of my kids and how they've played these last 2 games especially.
Of course, Dina Applebury on the Atlantic Regional Advisory Committee, she probably had no problems with you allowing you into the tournament after the success in the middle of the season. That might come back to haunt her. You never know. Let's talk about your team just a little bit. You've got a couple seniors on this squad, but you have certainly a load. I should say 3 seniors to be specific. But you have a load of sophomores and freshmen and no juniors. You look at this on paper, and you've got to look at it and go, yeah, they're losing 3 seniors, but you've got a lot of young players getting a heck of a lot of great experience this season that can only bode well for the future.
Oh, definitely. And, we had 4 freshmen in our starting lineup last year, so we started 4 freshmen and a senior, and Jamie Sapp graduated, and then April Sparkman, who you might remember from a couple years ago, had torn her ACL last year. There's a player who has a lot of experience as well, and certainly in NCAA play. And she came back for her 5th year, thank goodness. And, I think she looked and saw how good, our young players were and thought, I want to be a part of that, and came back for her 5th year. And, she's obviously been a, really critical component to our offense and our defense. But, we are still considerably young, and these freshmen, these sophomores were freshmen last year and got a lot of minutes, and like I said, 4 of them were in the starting lineup, and we won the CAC championship and got into the NCAAs and had to go face Christopher Newport in the first round, and I think that was pretty eye-opening for a lot of them, but what a great experience for them, to get to the tournament and at least play 1 game, and I think they've been able to use that going into this season and using that experience to help them win a couple games in the NCAA tournament this year.
Well, you mentioned Sparkman, 16-plus, nearly 17 points a game, hauling in 7.4 rebounds. You have Kristen Haley, who's a sophomore at 14 points and 5.8 rebounds. Brittany Hicks, who's a sophomore at 13.4 points and 6 rebounds. Your leading assist is Sparkman, I think, at 2.4, or I forgot, Aja Walfer at 7.3 assists a game. Walfer's also handing out dishing out 6.2 points. You clearly have a very good squad here that has maybe gone under the radar thanks to the Mary Washingtons, thanks to the Juniatas, and even the Amherst, the Chicagos, and the like. How do you see yourself matching up against Amherst and what they have done this season and what you have seen on tape?
Well, Amherst obviously is a lot bigger than us. They have a lot more experienced players. But, you talked about Asia Walfer. 7.3 assists a game. She's leading the nation in assists. She's playing like a senior. These sophomores are playing like seniors. And like I said, they really have no fear. They're not afraid of, any opponent. And even though it's Amherst, it was funny. I was in the team room and we were watching film and going over the scouting report, and I was giving them a little bit of background on Amherst and saying, they're 93-2 over the last 3 years. They've won 5 consecutive home games. They're 29-0. They're the defending national champs. I went through the whole resume.
Nice.
And my point guard said, "So what are you trying to tell us, Coach? They're good?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah." And we kind of laughed about it. And I said, "Look, you don't need me to tell you. You've read it all." And but again, they're just looking at it as another game, and we've played Mary Washington 3 times this season. The last 2 times we came awfully close to beating them. They're very similar to Mary Wash. When I watch them on film, great defensive team. They hold their opponents to 45 points or less a game, and Mary Washington, is even better than that, holding their opponents to 40 points or less. So we've played against that type of defensive team. Mary Washington has a real big presence inside. They have a lot of kids that come off the bench that can play for them and have great guard play. And I think Amherst is very similar to that. So when I watch them on film, they remind me a lot of Mary Wash. So it's not like we're not used to playing a team like that. So, just having Mary Washington in our conference and playing them 3 times, I think will certainly help us. Playing William Patterson in our tournament this year, they came to our Coaches versus Cancer tournament, and we played them. And I told my kids at the time, this is the type of team that you'll see if we make it in postseason. You're going to see these types of great teams. And, Johns Hopkins and Patterson, obviously we're in the tournament, and Mary Wash is still in. So, the teams we've lost to this year have all been very solid. And again, Amherst is just another one of those really good teams that we're playing this year.
Let me quickly about Mary Washington as we head a little bit closer to overtime here on Hoopsville. We heard from Coach Dina Applebury earlier in the season, but a lot of people probably don't have a really good idea of how good they are, and so I would say some who are close or have seen them say they're probably not as good as their Final Four team from several years ago, but they're certainly in position to get back. What did you see in this team? What makes the Eagles so difficult this year?
Well, I think, defensively, like we talked about, they play such great defense, and it's not that they're full court pressing you or, they don't do that. They just play this solid half court man-to-man, and it is really tough to get into the paint. They gobble up every rebound. They're just really solid, and they've got these two seniors that are just playing great. Wimmer and McCray are just leading that team this year. But I think the other thing that makes Mary Wash so good is they've got this incredible depth, and they just keep bringing players off the bench, and they don't lose a thing. They just, if somebody's having an off night shooting, they'll bring somebody else in. And defensively, they stay fresh. They can keep kids rotating in and out, and they're bringing 6'1" off the bench, 6 foot, bringing in another great shooter. They just are very solid, very unselfish team. And again, they're led by Wimmer and McCray, but anybody can score on any given night on that team.
Yeah, certainly a dangerous squad. You guys have proven you're dangerous as well. We'll obviously be taking on Amherst coming up here tomorrow night. 7 o'clock Eastern start, I believe. Am I correct?
Yes, 7 o'clock.
It's a little bit busy up there in College Town, a little bit in Amherst, because the men's basketball teams at Franklin and Marshall, were obviously you're very familiar from.
Right.
You guys passed each other, I'm sure, on the way.
Yes, we probably did.
And then clearly the hockey team is busy up there, but it should be a fun weekend nonetheless. I'd love to ask you one of the questions, a topic we've been talking about most of on the show, and I have a feeling most people have found out in Division III, whether through its chat rooms, through Twitter, or for word of mouth. I don't know if you heard either, but the scenario here, the situation where a senior player on the Kings women's basketball team apparently leaves the team to go on spring break after they beat William Patterson last week, apparently unbeknownst to her teammates or coach. Again, these are just based on reports that we have heard, published reports, I should say. We have not heard her side of the story, clearly. It's a team, Kings, that is up at your neck of the woods, certainly, at Amherst as well. Have you ever been in a situation, whether it's your 15 years at York or as a player or anything, where you've ever had a situation where a player has had spring break plans or any plans in general that have come before the priorities of the team, or for that matter, have discussed them with you?
Never. I've never really heard anything like that. Obviously, I've never had anything like that at York, but I've never, ever heard of that happening. I always tell my players, regardless, don't make any spring break plans.
Right.
And our spring break actually is early. We call it a winter break, and it comes early. It comes during the championship weekend. Is the start of it. So that is an unbelievable story to me. And we were on the bus on the way up here tonight, and Dean Gamber, who's the men's assistant, actually sent me that article, and we were all talking about it on the bus. And my players couldn't believe it. They said, "I just can't believe that kid would do that." And again, we don't know her side of the story.
Sure.
I remember. I watched Kings on film and scouted them as well, and I remember seeing she was their leading scorer, but she came off the bench, and I thought that was a little odd to me. So, who knows what the story is there. But, hopefully it's not going to be a distraction for Kings. And,
sure.
I kind of feel sorry for that coach, and he has to kind of deal with all of that. But, I think they're just going to be very focused on playing Emmanuel and, sticking with their game plan.
I was going to say, you're up.
Disappointing.
Yeah, certainly disappointing. You're up there. Have you had any interactions with Kings, same hotel, anything like that so far?
No, actually, we've been we're at all 3 different hotels.
Oh, okay.
None of the teams are staying here, and
Gotcha.
We're at 3 different hotels. But I did see the Emmanuel coach after his shoot around, and he had just heard the story, and we were just kind of talking about it a little bit, but we just. He was kind of like I was, where he couldn't believe it.
Sure.
But, it's just a shame that, that
kids' priorities are, I guess, elsewhere. I mean, what a great accomplishment to beat William Patterson, and now they're in the Sweet 16, and I don't know. I mean, that's just a shame.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate getting your point of view on it. We've asked almost everybody on the show tonight, including a senior basketball player at Worcester, on his point of view. He says he just never made plans. So I just was curious on your take, and I appreciate you giving us that. And I don't want to take any more of your time. I know you got plenty of work ahead of you to get ready for Amherst tomorrow night and get the team ready and so on and so forth. Though I do want to ask you, without belaboring the point on the men's side, but obviously you mentioned Dean Gamber, his dad, Jeff Gamber, retiring after a great run, another CAC title for him, and making the NCAA tournament before his good friend Glenn Robinson unceremoniously forced him into retirement. Your take, I know you've been around Jeff a long time in your 15 years at York. Your take on Jeff and what kind of hole that will leave for York basketball in general.
Well, yeah, I've known Jeff for 15 years. He hired me, back when he was the athletic director. Mm-hmm. I will really miss Jeff, and he's been a tremendous mentor to me, and we've worked together all these years, and he's just a great guy that has always supported me and the women's basketball program, and we've always supported each other throughout the years, and he's the guy that I like to sit down with and do X's and O's with, pick his brain, because to me he's one of the masterminds in men's basketball, and I'm really going to miss Jeff, and I'm sure our friendship will continue and live on, and he'll still come and support us, I'm sure, and support York College and the Spartans. But he will really be missed by a lot of people, and especially myself. It'll be very different working with another coach, whoever that may be. But right. Just what a tremendous, not just coach but person. And I'm really going to miss him a lot. But like I said, I hope to see him a lot coming to the games and supporting all the teams at York. I think he'll continue to do that. But I wish him the best, and hope that he has a great retirement and can just relax and enjoy himself a little bit and not have to worry about stressing about basketball. So he deserves to go to the beach and relax. And but he will be missed, definitely.
Franklin and Marshall fans pointing out that they gave them the PA announcer gave him a send-off at the end of the game there. In the first round, so that's a nice touch by the Franklin and Marshall fans. Of course, Glenn Robinson and Jeff, good friends themselves. Well, Coach Whitman, I certainly appreciate you joining me here tonight. As always, we give the coach the final word on Hoopsville, so any final thoughts you'd like to share with those who are listening?
Final thoughts. Well, I want to wish all the teams the best of luck, and I think it's been a great tournament so far, and I want to thank all the people who have supported us throughout the season as well, and hopefully they'll be up here in Amherst cheering us on.
Well, hopefully you get a good contingent up there. If not, I'm sure they'll be watching online and rooting your team on, and I wish you luck as well. I'd love to get your take on Amherst sometime when we get a chance to chat off air. And good luck and safe travels as well, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
All right, take care.
Good night.
Betsy Whitman joining us from York of Pennsylvania. Women's basketball team, again, taking on Amherst tomorrow night in the second game up there at Amherst. A couple things here. Some questions I have gotten. What are my take on some games? I will try and answer those. And the last couple of minutes we have here in overtime. Don't forget, if you missed any of the show, it will be on demand within a few minutes after the show concludes. Also, don't forget, we'll be on the air Sunday, and then we will not be back on the air until after the championships. Next Thursday's show, which has traditionally been at Salem and been live, will be foregone this year for several reasons, but we will get interviews with coaches up there in lieu and have those posted on d3hoops.com. So I hope you don't mind, but our schedule's a little bit different this year. We're not broadcasting the games per se, but we are assisting in broadcasts, and as a result, things have changed a little bit. So we will not actually have our traditional Hoopsville show in Salem, but we will have some interviews. So this is our second to last show. We will have one more on Sunday, and then we'll wrap up the season. Most likely the following Sunday, or really most likely the Monday after the championships. We'll have some guests on for that as well. A couple of thoughts here. One of the questions I had, One person says they want Hoopsville in Salem. It will be there, just in a taped version. I hope you don't mind. My responsibilities on Friday and Saturday are dramatically different. I'm sure you will learn more about that down the road. I'm not going to sit here and talk about it now, but it will require me to be maybe just a little bit busier on a Thursday night than I normally am. But we will do interviews during the day on Thursday and post those onto the website. So please make a point of catching those. One of the questions was my take on Amherst versus Franklin and Marshall, which will be tomorrow. I will be at Franklin and Marshall producing those games for Franklin and Marshall. We're trying to step up their broadcast a little bit. They've wanted us to come in and do that for them. So we'll be adding some bells and whistles to the broadcast. I don't know if I'll be necessarily on the call, maybe on Saturday. But in the meantime, my take on the game, I think you got a very good offense in Amherst with a lot of size inside and good shooting, taking on a very good defensive unit in Franklin and Marshall, though I think the true test here is how good is that defensive unit in non-centennial teams. They defeated Western Connecticut, which certainly was a good offense, and allowed 72 points, though they knocked out York by only allowing 50. So that kind of tells you where they are defensively. They're going up against an Amherst team that shut down an NYU team who only scored 56 points against Amherst, but Amherst put up 80. Aaron Toomey for Amherst is dangerous. Giorgio Milligan for Franklin and Marshall is dangerous. I think you've got I think one of the more interesting matchups of the entire 8 games tomorrow night in this, and it's going to be whichever one dictates their game. Does Amherst dictate their offensive mindset, or does Franklin and Marshall, the Diplomats, dictate their defensive mindset? I think that side of the court is going to be the deciding factor. I think Franklin and Marshall can certainly score. I think Amherst has got a good defense, but I don't think that will be the deciding factor. I really think it's how Franklin and Marshall's defense matches up against Amherst's offense. Who comes out of that, I'm not going to say, considering up there. I don't want anybody thinking I have a bias of any kind, but I'm looking forward to that game. Quickly, the MIT Staten Island game, we've alluded to it, talking to Larry Anderson and talking to Jody King. Coach Anderson talking about how they have to adjust possibly to injuries. Staten Island maybe kind of flying under the radar here, are better maybe than many people have anticipated. That game, I would not be surprised if Staten Island wins, only because there have been so many questions about just how good are the Engineers. That being said, MIT has shown they are a good team as well. They beat Farmingdale State by 20, and they beat Skidmore by 7. Staten Island beat Rhode Island College by 10 after destroying Ithaca by 25. I think MIT comes out of that, but I don't want to say for sure because Staten Island has shown they can play good basketball, and Jody King alluded to the fact they've got some good players on that team as well. Again, I think that comes down to MIT's defense more than anything. Staten Island's defense I'm not sure about, but their offense certainly clicking on all cylinders there. Down the lower right, you have Virginia Wesleyan versus Whitworth. Talk about two different squads. Virginia Wesleyan extremely deep with a lot of players who can contribute. Whitworth with a lot of size and has played very good basketball this season, defeating a Trinity squad who had upended Mary Hardin Baylor. I think that would have been a different game if it had been against Whitworth, Mary Hardin Baylor, that is. Which team travels better? Whitworth's used to it. Maybe Virginia Wesleyan is not. That game at Whitewater, I don't know what to take out of that one. I think that one has some interesting matchup issues. I think it's going to come down to Whitworth's size. Can they take advantage? I know Virginia Wesleyan has some size too, but I think Whitworth has a little bit better size inside. Wheaton versus Whitewater. Which Wheaton team shows up? You know, is this the team that loses twice to Northern Central and has a number of losses on their schedule we're not sure about? Which Whitewater team shows up? Whitewater had some losses this year that no one can really understand. It is at Whitewater, but that certainly doesn't mean anything. I think half of last year's teams in the Final Four on the men's and women's side were not hosts at this point in time. That is a great matchup against two very good teams. I think I give it to Whitewater just because of home court advantage. But Whitewater has lost at home too, so I don't know how to take that one out. I think all these games have some fascinating little matchups here. I know, Wheaton fan, you're angry that I'm probably taking Whitewater here, but I just don't. The problem is I don't know which team shows up. I just don't know. Does the Wheaton team that dominated at some points this season show up? Or is the team that inexplicably loses to North Central this season show up? And I don't nothing against North Central. I think Wheaton had chances to beat them. Does Whitewater show up? Or is the team that lost bad games there show up? Lower left-hand corner, you have Worcester versus Illinois Wesleyan. Is the honeymoon after beating Hope over for Illinois Wesleyan? Can they continue to ride that? They also have injuries. I think it's Zimmer. There are reports he may be playing on a broken ankle, the same foot he had broken earlier in the year. If that's the case, I don't know if 1 week of sitting on that. Adrenaline can get you only so far. 1 week of no adrenaline will only get you so far. I'm just not sure if Illinois Wesleyan can keep it up against Worcester. But if they got another win left in them, I think they can knock off Worcester. I think Illinois Wesleyan's run, though, it as great as it is here, I just don't know if they can get past the Fighting Scots. But granted, Illinois Wesleyan is big inside, and they can certainly play, I think, with Worcester. North Central against Wittenberg. Again, which team shows up? Does the North Central team that lost some strange games this year as well show up? Does Wittenberg, who played, I thought, very well against Carroll, or the Wittenberg team that played decently against Birmingham Southern? Birmingham Southern's a good team, but I saw a much different team against Carroll. Black and Brandt inside for Wittenberg is a very good duo who against Birmingham Southern weren't as good. Black gets into his head too much. He lets the referees' calls get into his head too much. You got to keep that in check, and Wittenberg has to shoot well from outside. Same true for North Central. Not sure if what happens here. These games are full of interesting matchups. Granted, NCAC style versus CCIW, you got both of those there at Worcester. Middlebury versus Scranton. I said it on Sunday. I don't know if Scranton matches up. And I know there are Scranton fans out there who are angry at me for saying this. But I don't think Scranton matches up well against Middlebury. Scranton has some very good players. I think they are undersized. I don't think they have the experience inside. Scranton has gotten this far. Do not get me wrong. That is impressive. Middlebury is a very good team. I think they have shown some holes. I think they have shown some flaws, and those holes and flaws could be something the Royals can take advantage of. The question is, do they have the firepower to get past Middlebury? At Middlebury fans have been dying for this round of the games to be at their place. I don't know if Scranton can overcome that. Cabrini versus Eastern Connecticut. Interesting. Very interesting. Cabrini has proven, I think, in a bit that they deserve where they are. Can Corey Lemons continue to play well? And can Eastern Connecticut continue to play well after beating Oswego State in double overtime at Oswego State? I think that's a pick'em. I think Cabrini is maybe better than people appreciate. Even I have my doubts. But Eastern Connecticut has shown a lot this season, especially late, that they're a pretty good team. But they've also had some inexplicable losses that I can't figure out either. Yes, Middlebury has last home loss, by the way, was 2.5 years ago. Kind of my point. But doesn't mean, they've shown some flaws that I'm just a little worried about. Quickly on the women's side, Amherst versus York. Coach Betsy Whitman on here earlier. York is a good team, but the size inside against Amherst might be too much, and Amherst is playing very good basketball. Granted, can they keep that up throughout the season? That is the toughest thing when you're an undefeated team. Keeping that momentum going, even in the NCAA tournament. You are so used to beating teams that sometimes, especially new teams that you may not be as familiar about, York being one of those, that a team like York could trip them up. York has played against Mary Washington. They certainly know about playing teams that are very good. York is good themselves, do not get me wrong. I think Amherst probably comes out of that since it's at home too. Emmanuel versus Kings. How much was this story about Cancun a distraction for Kings? How much was it a distraction for the Monarchs? Can Emmanuel use that distraction to beat the Monarchs? Or will the Monarchs use it as a way of saying, we don't need her. We can win this. Either way, though, I just don't know if anybody can beat Amherst. Mary Washington versus Lebanon Valley. I kind of like this matchup. If anybody can beat Mary Washington before the next round, I think it's Lebanon Valley. Remember, Messiah gave Mary Washington a run for it, and I think Lebanon Valley is on par with Messiah. And that game previously was at Mary Washington. Look for Lebanon Valley to give Mary Washington a run for it. I think Mary Washington has a few flaws, and from what I've been told, they aren't as good as those teams we remember that were undefeated. They may not be able to get past Lebanon Valley. Bowdoin versus George Fox. As much as we appreciated Bowdoin's coach being on, George Fox is a juggernaut here. She even said it. They're outsized by George Fox. They're going to have to find other ways to win that. But we'll see how the jet lag hurts George Fox as well. That could certainly be a factor. Quickly in the upper right corner, Carthage. I love how Carthage is our center has been playing, but Carthage is playing far better basketball. I'm quite impressed with how they're playing. Sorry, by the way, a little bit of breakup in the feed here. I just noticed as we wrap up the show here, trying to shut some things down to help you out. We'll see. I think Carthage comes out of that. They are just playing terrific basketball right now, and I think the win over DePaul proved that on DePaul's court. So, playing now at Mount Union and being a little closer, not a little closer to home, but being in that area, I think they're in good shape, in my opinion, to get past Center. But Center's proven they can beat the big dogs. They beat Mount WashU by 2 at home. Illinois Wesleyan versus Mount Union. This is another game which Illinois Wesleyan team shows up. Mount Union playing extremely good basketball this season. Beat a very good Muhlenberg team coming back from behind on that one. But if they play like that against Illinois Wesleyan, they could be in trouble. Is it a CCIW showdown in the Elite Eight? I'm not quite sure. St. Thomas versus Tufts. That's got a lot of question marks on it. Tufts is very good and been overshadowed by Amherst. I think St. Thomas is very good, but can they play at the level Tufts has been playing at? I think Tufts is better than people realize. And maybe St. Thomas's season ends here unceremoniously, though that win over Co. I thought was pretty important. Calvin versus Chicago. We already talked about the fact that they played last year. We'd love to have seen this game in the next round. This is the battle, I think, of the entire Sweet 16 on the women's side. Calvin versus Chicago. Chicago's undefeated. I think Calvin has a chance to knock them out here, but it's at Chicago. That will certainly make it hard for that game. And you're right, should be a sectional final. George Fox cannot shoot free throws. I agree with you, they can't. But George Fox going against Bowdoin may not come down to that. Do you have your Final Fours, Dave, or are you going to pick them on Sunday? I'll pick them on Sunday. How does that sound? All right, I'll give you my Final Fours quickly. On the men's side, I think it will be Middlebury. Wow. Lower left has got a lot of questions on it. Middlebury, ready for this? Wittenberg. Yeah, Wittenberg. Amherst. And I think Virginia Wesleyan. I don't know. I'm not confident about that Virginia Wesleyan pick, to be honest with you, though. I think Whitworth could win. You know what? I'm going to change that. Whitworth. I'm just going to go out on a limb and say Whitworth. So Amherst, Whitworth, Middlebury, and Wittenberg on the men's side. Just taking a flyer there. On the women's side, I think it's Amherst. I think it is George Fox, believe it or not. I'm going to go with Mount Union, despite how well Carthage is playing. I'm going to go with Mount Union. And I am going to go with Chicago. Those are my women's picks. Yes, I know I just picked the Amherst FNM winner. But someone asked who my Final Four teams are. But to be honest with you, if FNM beats Amherst, I'm not going to sit here and be saddened by that. I think Franklin and Marshall's defense certainly is a factor. I just wonder how much the experience of Amherst is. Now, that being said, I have been told by somebody who has certainly broken down plenty of tape on Franklin Marshall. He says this is their best Diplomats team since '96. That says a lot. And so that might be something to consider here. Amherst is playing so well right now. I wasn't so confident in them earlier in the season, but right now they're playing such great basketball. I think the winner of that game moves on, is what I should say, and I'm just going to take Amherst. I'm throwing a dart on the wall, to be honest with you. I'm not really jumping out there. And you're right, Thunder. I could put 10 teams into the Final Four on the men's side easily. I mean, I could change up Middlebury and go with Eastern Connecticut or Cabrini. I could throw in Worcester or North Central out of the other corner. I could go with Franklin and Marshall. I could go with MIT. I'm not sure about Staten Island. I could go with Virginia, Wesleyan, Whitworth, Wheaton, or Whitewater out of that 4. That's just a ton of teams. That's how much parity there is this season. Just so much parity. So there you go. We'll see if I'm even close on Sunday, but I'm not guaranteed. I will be. Got to get going because I got to hit the road to Franklin and Marshall tomorrow. Chris has got to hit the road to Cancun, apparently. Yeah. Cancun. When it comes down to Division III, Cancun this year will end up being an interesting plot line. And so I'll finish on this rant. I do not know the whole story, and I certainly don't want to make any judgments towards the player in question. But I find it fascinating that a senior on a basketball team that has not been to the NCAA tournament since 2003 would choose to go on vacation, spring break, instead of be with her team in the Sweet 16. She's the 6th man. Team's leading scorer. Started 3 years prior to that. Certainly has not had a great NCAA tournament, but was pivotal in their Misericordia game. And certainly been their leading scorer all season long anyway. The fact that she would, have plans for a spring break is interesting because it's not like this team hasn't been traveling all year. I mean, has been playing all year, and they've been regionally ranked. It certainly was kind of obvious they would probably make the NCAA tournament. The only surprise about them was the fact that they hosted, though William Patterson women could not. I think it was just surprising that Kings ended up being the host. Nothing against them. But the fact that she chose to go on spring break instead of with her team to the Sweet 16 just baffles me. I just can't imagine it. I didn't play a sport that obviously affected spring break, but I never went on spring break either, as I was doing work back here with the lacrosse programs, basketball programs, and everything at my alma mater. So I didn't enjoy spring break either. But I knew that was my role. So you know your role is as a basketball player. There's been some talk that maybe the money was there and she would have lost it, and so she went on the break anyway. I get that. I understand that. That's why you buy traveler's insurance. But according to the report, too, the players and coaches didn't know about it until she had left. How do you not discuss that with your players or your teammates and your coach? Unless you know you're leaving and you know it's probably wrong. Again, I don't know the whole story. But everything that we've read so far is certainly suspicious. Certainly strange. Bizarre. Odd. Crazy. It's your senior year. You have never played in the NCAA Division III tournament. This school has never been to the tournament since 2003. It's their 5th trip overall. And you chose to leave for Cancun and spring break. I can't wait to hear her side of the story if it ever comes out. You know she'll be back. If Kings makes it to the Final Four, you probably can guess she won't be with the team. We don't know it all, but that is certainly a shocking development for a team on their way to Amherst to play in the Sweet 16. I can't explain it. And I can't imagine it has to be explained. But it will be. And we'll stay tuned with it. You've been listening to Hoopsville. Appreciate everybody joining us. We'll be back on the air Sunday night, so make sure you tune in. And don't forget, go to d3hoops.com. On Friday and Saturday, we'll have links to all the videos, live stats, and every audio call possible from all of the games and all the sectionals, including any of our work that we may be doing, but especially anybody else who is providing those video links. It is key for Division III fans to get a chance to see their teams play or see other teams play. And as a lot of coaches have said on this show, go out and support. If you are nearby a game, why don't you go and check it out? It's good basketball this time of year. On the men's side, there's tons of parity. On the women's side, there's fascinating teams and fascinating matchups. It is good time to have basketball. And when we talk to you on Sunday night, we'll know the Final Four teams for both sides, and we'll be talking about who's the favorite to win a national title. This is the best time of year in Division III basketball. Go check it out and join us back here on Sunday, right here on Hoopsville. You've been listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and on Ustream. Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you on Sunday night.